And I thank you for the leadership of our city. I pray that you would be with them as they wrestle with issues this evening. I pray that you would help them to come to decisions that are right, that are just. And Lord, I pray that your will would be done through our city council. Lord, I pray for the things that are going on in our world. The chaos that's going on in Afghanistan, the folks in Haiti that have gone through the earthquake. There's so much that's going on all over our world. And yet I believe that you have it in your hands. And I pray that you would take care of situations as they arise, just like you do here in Fairfield. And so once again, I pray for our council tonight that they are able to make decisions that need to be made. And I pray that your blessing would be on this place. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me as we salute our flag and country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Mr. Mayor, we should have council members Bertani and Moy online now. If we can't hear them, we'll just need to ask them to unmute if they're muted and make sure that they are here.
This is Pam Bertani. I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so
And then,
we're all present and accounted for.
okay, item 1,
Okay,
public hearings.
clerk, please.
Public hearing number 1 regarding redistricting city council district boundaries. And our presenter will be Doug Yoakum, the demographer from National Demographics Corporation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, council members. My name is Doug Yoakum from National Demographics. I'd like to introduce Mr. Robert McIntyre, also with National Demographics. Some of you may be familiar with him. He helped you with the districting process a couple of years ago. And he will be available in case I do not have, I can't be at one of your meetings. Let me get this right. I have some information for you tonight, just to inform you about the beginning of your process and to guide you through how we want to help you put together a redistricting plan by April next year, which is the deadline. We hope to be done well before that. You'll see by the schedule that your staff and I have decided upon. First of all, just last week, you may have heard that the U.S. Census Bureau, released their redistricting numbers, and that's for the entire country. But that was in a machine-readable form. No human can read what the Census Bureau put out this week. So it's currently being processed by the folks at the statewide database. Statewide database reports to the legislature because the legislature is responsible for providing a database to the State Redistricting Commission. That data is required by law to be used by all cities and counties in California. And so we won't have that data completed until the end of September. So today we're having your first redistricting hearing, open to the public, and hoping to hear from any members of the public who have concerns about redistricting and how districts are drawn in this city. And then on September 21st, we will have a second hearing. And those are called the pre-draft map hearings. Then the data comes, and we will move on to the next part of the process. Your staff and I have planned for a community workshop on October 7th, which is a date that's not your regular council date. Open to the public to hear from them as to how they think districts should be drawn in Fairfield. I will describe to you in a moment some of the tools we will provide so that your residents can have input as to the way they want the districts to be drawn. So that is October 7th. We have the first draft, post-draft hearing on the 16th of November, the second one in January after the holidays. And like I said, hopefully we'll be done by that time, but the state requires that your districts be drawn by April 17th of 2022. And your registrar of voters will be very happy to receive it any time before that. So let me tell you about what the requirements are, what we all have to, are confined to do by the state and by federal law. First of all, most importantly, each district must be substantially equal. In other words, they have to have equal population one to the other. And they must comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act. That means that you cannot discriminate against a protected class of voters by dividing them or combining them in a way that takes away their opportunity to elect a candidate of their choice. That's a very legalistic definition of the Voting Rights Act, but it basically means you can't discriminate against a minority group and take away their opportunity to elect a member of the council that they would like, that if their combination or if their allocation to a district allows them to elect a candidate of their choice. So that's the federal requirements. We have state requirements now passed by the Fair Maps Act a couple of years ago. Each district must be geographically contiguous. So that just means that it has to be together. You can't have one part of a district in one area and another part in another area. When we go through the process of hearing from the citizens and hearing what they think their neighborhoods are and how they think communities should be kept together, to the extent possible, we need to keep those areas together. So you can talk about a neighborhood where it's just a small area where folks live and where they think that they have a common area, or you can talk about a community of interest, which is actually a socioeconomic term where if a group of voters or citizens are united around an issue and they want that issue heard before the council, and they think that they're more effective doing that together rather than being split apart, they would express that in your process, and then we would be required to keep that together to the extent that we could. You're required to use easily identifiable boundaries. And by that it means identifiable boundaries are rivers, streams, mountain ranges. Your city boundary is certainly one, but also major arterial roads, freeways, so that people can understand where the district lies. So it doesn't meander through neighborhoods, but that when someone looks at a map, they can understand, yes, I'm in that district, or I'm in this other district. That's what it means by easily and identifiable boundaries. And the districts must be compact. And by that, it simply means that you can't bypass a large number of people to get to another large number of people. So it has to be, the districts have to be compact. There's only one prohibition in current law, and that is that no district shall be drawn to favor or discriminate against a political party. So there are other redistricting principles that are certainly long held and often used, and they're not prohibited by the Fair Maps Act, and they are not required by the Fair Maps Act. So you can use them if you choose or not. The first one we'd like to talk about is to minimize the number of voters who are shifted from one district to another and then lose their opportunity to elect. I used to work for the state senate. It's called deferral. Some of you, you're all elected for 4-year terms. And so some of you are expecting to have elections in '22 and some in '24. You can, when you draw your plan, if you wish, minimize the number of people that you move from a district that's expecting an election in '22 into a district that's going to vote in '24. That's kind of you're kind of taking away their right to elect somebody that year. It may be that we have to do that in some instances, but all this is saying is that we should minimize that to the extent we can. Respect voter choices, and that means basically don't put 2 members of the council in the same district. They've already elected members of the council, and some of you are expecting, like I say, to vote to be re-elected in '22 or '24. It doesn't make sense to put you all together in the same district. You can, if you choose, look at future population growth in your districts and accommodate for that when you draw the plan. By that I mean if you know where there's going to be a large number of homes in the next 10 years and the population will be increased, you can underpopulate that district and then overpopulate a district next to it, if you so choose. But like I said, the main thing that we have to keep track of is equal population. You don't want to go too far past making sure that every district has the same number of people at the end of your process. And finally, if you so choose, you can preserve the core of your existing districts, basically make that a starting point, and move on from there. These are just principles that are often used, and they're not prohibited, but they're not required by the Fair Maps Act. National Demographics has put together a database. It's based on estimates, so we don't have the official data yet. So you're a very interesting looking city. Has some concentrations of Latino individuals. CVAP means citizen voting age population, and that's a calculation from the census ACS, which is a survey that the census does over the years. It's not the official census. So there are some concentrations of Latino voters in your Districts 1 and District 2. You can see that by the yellow and red. Those are the heat map colors associated with this map. We've put in the Asian American CVAP map here. It doesn't appear you have any large concentrations of Asian Americans. And there are some African American communities in District 2 and District 5. Those are located, I don't have my pointer here with me, but you can see them in the southern parts of District 2 and District 5. So when you're drawing districts, you just have to be careful not to separate communities that wish to be kept together in order to elect, like I say, a candidate of their choice. There's other socioeconomic demographics in this data, and there will also be in the census data when it finally comes. You can see your percent of renters in the central area is higher, and your higher incomes are in the outward area of your city. So what do I mean when I talk about neighborhoods? A neighborhood is what a resident of Fairfield thinks is their neighborhood. They can define it by natural dividing lines like a creek or a river or a street. It can be defined around a school, a local school, or a local park. Whatever folks think their neighborhood is, we would like them to express that to the council so that we know, hey, this is our neighborhood, we'd like to be kept together, or If they want to influence more than one of you in one district, they can be kept separated and divided if they so choose. We just want to hear from your local citizens what they think of the districts and what they think the district should look like. As I said earlier, communities of interest are a little different. They are geographic areas, but they share an issue or a characteristic. If they're united around a law enforcement issue in your city, or a housing issue, or they have transportation concerns, and they're all in a certain area, if they can define that for us and say, we would like to be kept together so we can talk to the council about in this way, we'd like to hear from them on that. And then, would the community benefit from being included within a single district for the purposes of its effective and fair representation? We put that in quotations because that's the actual state definition of what community of interest is. And this is just another slide with the exact same definition in it. I'd be happy to answer questions at the end if you'd like. So, how do we help you, the folks of Fairfield participate in this process? We will be providing you with what we call mapping tools. And they are varied based on the kind of participation that a resident would like to have. If they have computer savvy, computer knowledge, we have that. If they just wish to draw maps on paper, we will have that. And I'll show you that. This is a simple map review tool. When folks actually submit plans to us, we will put them on your website, and they can look at them using a simple map review tool. And that'll be on there. This is not your city, but this is an example of what our company will be providing. It's the simple map, paper map drawing tool. It'll be a map of your city that folks can print out from their home computer and then simply draw lines on it. They can draw a line in this corner, that corner, and then all of these population units will have population numbers on them, so they can add up and hopefully to an equally populous district in Fairfield. This is a different city, but anyway, we'll have them for your city. Then, if they're a little more comfortable with computers and like to use Excel, we will have the population units identified by number without actual populations on them. They will go to an Excel tool that's attached to their computer, and then simply put this area 2, simply tell what district they'd like it to be in, and then the third page of this Excel file will actually add up their districts for them. So that's just for somebody who's a little more comfortable with a computer but less comfortable with math. This is what your staff has ordered for a computer map drawing tool. It's called District R. It's developed by Tufts University. And this happens to be the city of Ontario here, but what you do is you take this paintbrush tool here on the program, and you just start drawing within your city with your paintbrush what you want. You can identify your neighborhood for us and then describe it. How'd that happen? There you go. I guess I got a little antsy with the mouse here. But pretending it's a paintbrush that you could draw parts of your community and actually make districts out of it, and then send it to us through the computer, through your home computer, and it'll be recorded and kept on your redistricting data website for everyone to see. These are, you've already established your website. I put the address here. This is the phone number that your staff has advertised as, if any citizens have questions or anything, they can call that. But if they have comments, and this is what we'd like you to use, just write to this email address at fairfield.ca.gov, and we will have your comments, and they will be recorded for everyone to see on the website, so that we hear from Fairfield citizens what they want their districts to look like. So that's my presentation. This is just the first one. We'll be here 3 more times, once before the numbers are ready and twice afterwards when we're actually drawing maps. And we hope to hear from not only you members of the council, but your constituents as to how they think the districts in Fairfield should be drawn. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Comments or questions for Doug? Well, thank you very much, sir. Thank you. So I will now open the public hearing. Madam Clerk?
All of my comments are for public comment. I don't have any cards for speakers for this item.
Okay, so you don't have any public comment cards for this item?
That's correct.
Okay.
Oh, did you wish to speak on this item? I wanted to ask him a question. Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Do you want her to come up to the
Come up there to the microphone, please.
podium? Thank you.
They're here.
Oh,
The microphone's right here with the podium. And you can just
My
start.
name is Rosemary, and I live in Fairfield. My question was, when you showed the division of the districts by race, I could not see where the district lines were. So one of the things that's a problem when I've been looking on the maps online is the current districting line. I can't tell. I don't even know which district I am in. I think I know, but that's been very, very confusing for all the stuff that you guys have been putting out. And so that was why I raised my hand, because it was an appropriate time to ask you which one was District 1, 2, or 3.
I'd be happy to show you if.
Thank you, thank you.
Will we have that online as well, so that the citizens can see what the current district boundaries are
Yeah,
as they're comparing?
I think you have maps online right now, or on your website. I will check to see if they're attached to the redistricting website.
Might be good to have them attached to the redistricting so that they can do their comparisons there.
Absolutely. We're doing that for other jurisdictions as well.
Very good point. Thank you.
Anything
ma'am,
else?
for bringing that to our attention. Yeah. Are there any other public comments on this item?
did anyone else wish to speak on this item?
Mr. Mayor, this is Pam Bertani. May I speak?
Please, go ahead.
Thank you. My question is not to the content of the presentation, which was great. Thank you very much. Why are we subordinating public comment to this presentation and to other presentations to follow? In other words, why aren't we hearing from the public first? This is, I think, their meeting. So I don't understand why this format of this meeting is the way that it is. So this is probably a question for Stefan, but I really believe and think that public comment is the guiding force of these meetings. And so why are we subordinating that now to presentations?
Yeah, I can respond to that, Councilmember Bertani. It's a good question. The reason is for redistricting, we are required, when we post the time for the redistricting public hearing, and only for that one, the time that is posted on the agenda for that must be when that happens. So other items, we post the time of the beginning of the meeting. We have to be specific for the public hearing on redistricting, and I think that's a state requirement. Is that correct, Council?
Yes. So under the redistricting laws, if you set the redistricting hearing at 6, it has to take place as close to 6 as possible. So if we put it, let's say, at the end of the meeting and other items get pulled off consent or another hearing goes long and you don't get till 7:30, that would technically be out of compliance with the redistricting laws.
So that's why we've for this meeting had to adjust public hearings at the very beginning of the meeting rather than after all the other public comment and the other things.
Okay, thank you. I think that answers my question. I just want to go on the record for saying that, the first thing that we need to hear from in these meetings is from our residents. So, barring any, requirement like you just stated, I just hope that we can keep to our established practice of hearing from our residents first. So thank you, Mr. City Manager, much appreciated.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Councilwoman Moy, did you have a comment, please?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Okay, thank
And
you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I think you're looking for an answer. I think, and I hope this at least gives some of an answer. We've directed that they put the redistricting lines, that like the existing boundaries, that they attach that on the website next to those tools that you're using online so you can do a comparison.
My question was, when he put his slide up, I could not see the lines. And my question is very simple one. Where are the lines? That's all.
Okay.
It was a very simple question.
Do you have a slide that will show that on there?
In the future, if it's helpful, we'll make the lines darker.
Yeah.
But I'd be happy to show you what those were right now, if
And ma'am, if you could give us your street address, the council member who serves that area will be able to. You'll know who
And
that-
she did give it to me, and I'm also going to send her the current map
Okay,
and some
good.
information tomorrow, but once I determine her district, I will reach out to her council member as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's clear.
So we'll close that hearing and go to the second hearing.
I'll just give you a copy right here so you can look at it.
Madam Clerk, if you would, the second hearing, please.
Now, item 2, public hearing and resolution 2021-192 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield annexing territory BMW of Fairfield to Community Facilities District Number 2012-2, Public Safety Services, Open Space Operation, and Park Maintenance, and as annexation number 52, authorizing the levy of a special tax within the annexed territory and submitting the levy of a special tax to the qualified electors thereof, and Resolution 2021-193 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield declaring the results of a special annexation election in territory annexed to Community Facilities District Number 2012-2, Public Safety Services, Open Space Operation, and Park Maintenance, determining the validity of prior proceedings and directing recording of amended notice of special tax lien for City of Fairfield Community Facilities District Number 2012-2, Public Safety Services, Open Space Operation, and Park Maintenance, annexation number 52, BMW of Fairfield, and our presenter is Public Works Management Analyst Chris Lewis.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Chris Lewis, Management Analyst with the Department of Public Works. Before you tonight is annexation number 52 for CFD 2012-2. This district provides funding for public safety services, open space operation, and park maintenance throughout the city. The territory proposed for annexation is located south of Automall Parkway and west of Serrano Drive. And once constructed, the development will be an automotive dealership. City Council initiated the annexation process for this territory on July 6, 2021, with the adoption of Resolution 2021-146. And by conducting a public hearing tonight, carrying out the ballot procedure, and adopting the proposed resolutions before you, Council will complete the annexation process and the territory will be added to the district. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Chris. Do you have any request to speak cards on this item, Madam Clerk?
I do not have any
Seeing none.
requests to speak. Does anyone wish to speak?
So you need to open and
We'll
close.
close the public hearing then and bring it back for council action.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Bertani, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Why is this going before public comment? What is
Mr. Mayor, it's the
happening
same.
to our agenda? Yeah.
Yeah, Councilmember Bertani, it's again the same thing. All of the public hearings, because of the requirement on that first one of holding it as close to the start time as possible, we took all the public hearings and moved them to the beginning of the meeting for this meeting. If that's not agreeable to the council, I've not heard any comment from the council during the week after this was put out. We're happy to have made an adjustment, but this is what we have, and it seemed to be acceptable to everybody. So that's where we're at. That's why these are at the beginning of the meeting, was because that one needed to be there. We keep all the public hearings together.
Okay, well, I cannot speak for my colleagues, but I can speak for myself in saying that this is a new agenda format. And it puts public comment, which is really what this meeting should be all about, in a subrogated position. And I've never seen this. I've never seen this. So perhaps with, the redistricting, I get that. But with public hearings like the one that was just reported, which was really great, thank you very much, I do not understand why we are subrogating public comment to these hearings that are normally at the end of the agenda. I want to hear from the people of this city, and I think that that's what we're here for. So, I mean, I may be in the minority, but I've never seen this, Stefan. So I don't, I want to say that I do not acquiesce with this agenda format at all.
Through the
I
mayor,
think people come first.
through the mayor, may I make a point?
Go ahead, please.
This is the city attorney, David Lim, council member Bertani. You do have a procedural right if you want to make a motion to table item 2 and 3 and push it to some other place in the agenda. You have the right to make that motion. It would need to be seconded by a member of the council. You would then have a right to discuss whether to do that and then take a vote. And if the majority of the council approves, you would table those 2 items and move them to another part of the agenda. So if you do, because what I hear you saying is you strongly object, you do have the right to make that motion. It would need to be seconded by another council member. I just wanted, as a point of order, to let you know you do have that remedy.
And what I'm saying, not to be argumentative, but I've never had to do this since I've been on the city council. I've never seen this before. So that concerns me. Why do I need to make a motion to let the people speak first? I've never had to do it, don't understand. And maybe this, Stefan, is a conversation we need to have offline.
I would appreciate that, Councilmember Bertani. If this is something you want to discuss with me offline, that might be the more appropriate location for that.
Mr. Vice Mayor, please.
Yeah, Mr. City Manager, so we just had the second one, so is it possible to do the public comments now and then go back to the third one?
As legal counsel has advised, the council can rearrange the posted agenda any way that you would like. If a council member would like to move something to one place or the other, you have the opportunity to do that by making a motion that we move this. If there is a second to that motion, then the council can have that discussion and then act on that. But you have not finished the second public hearing, I don't think yet.
So, Mr. City Manager, so is this now the new, like, is this what we have to do every meeting?
No, ma'am, this is, as I stated earlier, this is an exception because of the need to have the first public hearing on redistricting as close to the start time of the meeting as possible because of the state law. This is an exception. And that's why you haven't seen it before. We rarely get into these districting things, but because of that, we had to make an adjustment to the agenda. And so this is not the norm.
Okay, so this is just for one meeting, but, I understand that with redistricting, but we're now getting into other public hearings that don't involve redistricting. So,
As a matter of practice, we generally keep, whether it's public hearings, whether it's new business, whether it's the consent agenda, or whatever it is, we usually keep those grouped together, rather than having a new business item here, and then doing a public hearing there, and then going to a consent, and then another new business. We try to keep them regrouped. Again, the council, however, during the meeting, if you decide that you want to go ahead and get something else put in there and split public hearings up, that is your prerogative during the meeting. But as a practice, when we put the agenda together, you keep public hearings together, you keep new business together, you keep the other things together.
okay, all right. So this is just an exception to the rule, but I would move that we hear public comment right now.
So we have a
So,
motion on
hold
the floor.
up, I'm sorry, through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
As a procedural matter, Councilmember Bertani, what I would recommend, because you made a motion to hear public comment now, but we still have an open public hearing as to item number 2. So I believe the proper motions would be first to make a motion to suspend the public hearing as to item number 2. If that passes, you can then make a motion to go directly to public comments and see if you get a second. But because we have an open public hearing currently, we can't go straight to public comment without first taking action on either completing that public hearing or suspending it and postponing it. So you need to make, procedurally, you should make a motion to table that public hearing.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to complete this public hearing, because that makes sense. And then let's hear from the public for public comment, and suspend whatever else is before public comment in this meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Sorry, point of order, and I'm just trying to help you get to where you want to be, so I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds. You don't need to make a motion to complete this public hearing. You can just complete this public hearing, and then I think what I hear you saying is after this public hearing is complete, you'd like to make a motion to advance the public comments.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct, sir.
All right. So I think that's what you'll do, is finish this public hearing as to item number 2, and then I think we can then have Councilmember Bertani take a motion to advance public comments. So,
I agree with that.
Councilman Tim, please.
Thank you. I think, folks, what you're seeing sometimes is the unseeming part of this. This agenda's been out for 4 days, 5 days. The public absolutely has a right to speak. I think we have house cleaning issues that need to be handled internally. We're going to spend more time arguing about this than it would take to probably finish both public hearings. I certainly understand the reasons for the first one. I understand Councilwoman Bertani's request. We can do one, and then if she feels strongly about it. But I would just like to remind my colleagues, we get this agenda way before, this isn't the first time we've seen it, so it's embarrassing. I apologize for that. You have the motion, but it needed to be said. Thank you, Mayor.
We have a motion on the floor. It has a,
There's no motion at this point, Mr. Mayor. What we have is a current public hearing that hasn't finished. When the public hearing is done, then it would be appropriate, if you want to move the public comment period next, that's when the motion needs to happen. But you have an open public hearing that you need to finish up first.
As the city
Agreed.
clerk, if somebody could just make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-192.
I'm sorry, again, point of order. I think we need to finish the public hearing, so
That's what she's saying here, is a motion on the
And that's my motion.
Oh, but the
Let's
hearing's not
finish
closed.
this public hearing, and then let's hear public comment.
Mr. Mayor, did you close the public hearing already?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
sorry. I forgot.
I need a motion to approve Resolution 2021-192, correct?
Correct, so moved.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor? Say aye, please. Roll call.
Councilmember Bertani?
Yes.
Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price.
Yes,
you.
motion carries unanimously.
Now, at this point, Councilmember Bertani or Moy, if you would like to make a motion, go ahead.
Well, we haven't finished, we passed one resolution, but
I'm
this is a
sorry,
two-
you're right,
this is a
there's two
two-part-
resolutions with this.
Two-part resolution, and we need to do the election.
Yes, I need to open the ballot for the second resolution, 2021-193. And we have 5 yes votes in favor of annexation.
Now we take action.
So then we now need a motion to approve Resolution 2021-193.
So moved.
Been moved by, I'm
I'll
sorry, I missed that.
second.
Who moved? Oh, by Councilman, the Vice Mayor? Is there a second,
Second.
please?
Second by Doris.
Seconded by Doris Panduro.
And I'll take roll call. Thank you. Councilmember Bertani?
Yes.
Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Okay, this is the point now, to where you can make a motion if you choose to move public comment. And we don't need to suspend anything because we haven't gone into the next public hearing, correct? So simply a motion to move public comment up to the next item.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bertani?
Yes.
Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price.
Yes, motion carries unanimously.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Okay.
So our first public speaker will be Jeff Traeger.
I want to bring everybody up to speed on what's going on at the Downtown Theater. Last Saturday night, we had a gentleman named Marshall Matthews who grew up in Green Valley, who came in and did his tribute to Neil Diamond to a sold-out house. It was really something. I think he went to Army O High School too. Anyway, this coming up in September on the 5th, we have the #1 premier Beatles tribute band in the country, the Sun Kings. So that's on the 5th, and then there'll be another presentation called for the Missouri Street Theater in September also. That starts on the 17th. It's called the Q Factor, and I have some other shows coming up. We have a tribute to it's John Lennon's 75th birthday in October. So those are things that are coming up. This Sunday, I'm having an event on Mare Island, and so after the Tomato Festival, if you'd like to come on over, the Escovedo family, Pete Escovedo and his sons, are going to put on a show out there, and I just got a call from Pete saying that he's got vertigo, he can't make it. But a portion of the proceeds and all donations will be going to North Bay Cancer Center and also to the family of Margarita Lopez, and I wanted to let you all know that. You're more than welcome to come over afterwards, late in the afternoon. Lastly, there's a place, a little restaurant that just opened up, I've been going to, that has music on. It's called the Three Restaurant, okay? It's right across from Evelyn's. And Francesco is bringing you music on Friday nights and on Sunday, and the food is great. I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dejan Hughes. Mr. Hughes?
Hello, Mayor Price and council. My name is Dejan Hughes. I'm here to speak on behalf of my son, Daniel Hughes, who was tragically lost his life earlier this year in April on Easter. On behalf of the Hughes family, I want to say, first of all, thank you for allowing me to speak to you guys. My son, who attended Vanden High School, was tragically killed. My family and I have moved out here in 2004 from the East Bay to be able to raise my family. And at that time, Daniel was a part of this community. We are still a part of this community. The outpouring of love and support that we've had since his passing has given me the strength to be up here today, right now, to speak to you all. I would like to ask if there was any way that I could work with you all in the city of Fairfield in honoring my son. My son, ever since he was really young, played basketball right across the street here at the Allen Witt Park with the youth basketball. He played basketball and football all up and down Highway 80 with various football organizations, basketball organizations, and so forth. Moving forward, I just ask that if there's anything or any way that my family or you all can honor him and his legacy and or his dream, because he did have big dreams. My son was a great kid, never in trouble, never had anything. Also, my son was an organ donor, which was his decision. So there is a member of this community, which actually is my grandson's father, who was on dialysis 3 times a week. So you figure that's every other day. He had to go for dialysis, and so he's currently able to walk around and live in the city of Fairfield because he received my son's kidney, which is a blessing for my grandson and our family to keep his legacy alive. So I just ask the community, the city council, you, Mayor, and everyone else that sits behind me for your support in honoring my son. And if there's anything that we can do to remember him, I don't want to take up too much time. I know you guys got a few more things to address this evening. But I did want to come out and meet everybody and say thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you, and that's
Mr. Mayor, this is Catherine. Mr. Hughes, I don't know if you can still hear me. You and I met along with a couple of other people, and we talked about some things, and we didn't meet again after that, but I want to meet with you again and then talk with the city manager about how we go about doing these things now, because we don't really have a real process. So that's what's been the hang up. So I just wanted to let you know. And you did great today. Thanks for coming up to meet everybody, and continued blessings.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman Moy. And let me just share with you, sir, on Saturday, and this is way out of a sequence that normally we would follow. On Saturday, I was very privileged to be asked to participate in a program over at the Kroc Center in Sassoon City called Beyond Violence. And it's exactly what you're talking about. So yes, you can count on me. I'll be there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Definitely be there.
Mr. City Manager? Yeah, and I'd like, if Mr. Hughes, if you can make contact with our city manager here, and then we can discuss the process and how to honor your son correctly.
And I have Mr. Hughes' phone number as well.
Okay. And thank you for
And
being patient, too.
Mr. Mayor?
So sorry for your loss.
Councilman Bertani, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. This is Pam Bertani. I hope you can still hear me. I mean, I have a lump in my throat. I have a lump in my throat. I have a son too, you know, and I can't imagine delivering the comments that you just delivered about your son. It is, yeah, it is beyond what I can think, but what I can tell you is this, that the city of Fairfield is known for our kindness. We're known for our kindness. We're known for, you know, listening. And so why don't you tell us what we can do to help? Why don't you tell us what we can do to help? I would commend you to Don LaBar, who has extensive connections in this community. I would commend you to my own pastor, Anthony Gilmore, who has extensive contacts in this community, but I don't want to be so presumptuous to say what we can do. Why don't you tell us what we can do for you to help you honor your son as I would want my son, Dylan Andrew Bertani, recognized if this were me delivering these comments to you. What can we do? What is your vision for this?
You know, really right now, there's a ton of things that I would like, and some of those things I may be asking for too much, but in me asking right now, I'm not going to get any senior pictures. I'm not going to get a prom picture. My son had a scholarship offered to Northern Arizona, and a couple of weeks later, he was tragically killed. So I would want it all. I mean, because I'm not going to get anything else. So if there's any way I could, a park, a mural, a statue, anything. I would just like to work with the city and the developers or anyone who would have any great ideas to go forward. I have many ideas, but with all in reason, every life matters. So I want to make sure that, and we've had an outpouring of love and support from the community, from, like I said, from Vallejo all the way to Sacramento, of people signing and sending messages and reaching out on social media to my family and I, sending their condolences. So at this point in time, anything that the city of Fairfield can do to help this city, because it's not just my loss. It hurts me the most, but the community has been tragically impacted and been hurting from this loss of my son, as well as other people who have lost their lives. But I think that in this situation, something that the kids, or something that would honor him, you know, something that the people could see on a day-to-day basis, I would love that. I love that.
Well,
And I can assure-
let me say, sir, that number one, I wish I were looking at you face to face, but you've got to believe me when I say that we're with you. I will be personally accountable for making it happen for you. So it's not hard. It's not hard at all, and it is our great honor to be with you in this time. So I would commend you to our city manager, Stefan, and more specifically to Don LaBar. And together, we will do what you just asked us to do. That's going to be done.
Thank you.
That's
very
going
much.
to be done.
Thank you very much.
You are so welcome, so welcome.
Thank you,
Very much.
Councilwoman Bertani, thank you. Mr. Hughes,
Thank
we'll
you
be
guys
in
again.
touch. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. Madam Clerk, we go to the next
Our
item, please.
Our next speaker is John Takeuchi.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. John Takeuchi, resident of Fairfield. I had turned in a card for the redistricting briefing there, and then I was told that it'd be better to keep that one short. So anyway, I wanted to talk about, I remember when this presentation was done, 2.5 years ago, the first time around, and my first thought was, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to go through all this, grief just to satisfy a lawsuit? I understand the reasoning, all that, and there's nothing we could do about it. And I understand that at this point, it's too late to do anything about 2021 or 2022. But I just want to give you my thoughts on this thing. Okay. John Gardner, the Assistant Registrar of Voters, told me that there are some issues with the Registrar's office. In the last election, they put out 185 different ballots for Solano County. There is no government agency that has districts that overlap any other government agency. That's what you get with districts. Okay. Now, I remember one of the reasons for redistricting in the first place, the lawsuit, was that it was alleged as an undemocratic process. There were some people that were not getting their voices heard. Okay, and so you go to these things here and you kind of balkanize the whole town is what you do. But you still have that problem. A significant minority can still swing any vote. It happens. That's just the way it is. So districts haven't entirely solved that problem, but they've created other ones. Okay. So my thought is, why don't we rethink this whole thing? Why don't we go back to one man, one vote? The city of Fairfield, I don't know, 100,000 or 80,000 voters, every one of you gets one vote, and you vote for the person that you want to be sitting on this council. Hopefully, you'll vote for the smartest, wisest person, experience in the town, all that kind of stuff, okay? That way, I think you will get the feeling of the town, of the majority. You get the feeling of the people, okay? That's one thought. The districting costs a ton of money. All those ballots, remember last time they had a couple errors and they had to redo a couple precincts, 20 or 2,000 ballots each or something like that. That's cost and things like that. I think all I'm asking is that you think about this. At the next go around, think about just going to one man, one vote. Okay. Slightly different topic, term limits. And the mayor remembers this. I think it was 91 or something like that. The council formed a little committee to turn up a white paper on term limits. Is it appropriate for the city of Fairfield? I was on that thing. Mark Sievers, the mayor, was on there. You were, I think, just a planning commissioner at the time. But anyway, I thought it should take a month, maybe. Fred Barnes was the chair. Fred, if you remember him, he's a very detailed guy, and it took 4 months. Okay? But it was kind of worthwhile. The basic recommendation was, during our discussions, we know most of you very well, okay? And in our opinion, maybe term limits are not necessary. If we don't like what you're doing, we'll get rid of you, okay? But we came up with a recommendation to the city, and there was a bill working through the legislature, remember that? To do exactly that. And so the city of Fairfield put out, what was it, Measure A and B, two measures. One was on term limits and one was on another topic related to that. Unfortunately, the legislature killed that bill. But the two ballot measures still went on the ballot. I think it was, April of 92. Both were approved unanimously. The people like term limits. I think it was 2 limits on the council. You have to sit out one. You can run as many times as you want to, but you got to sit out one. Is that right, Mayor? I think that was it. So you know, the people really want to, you know, they don't want people sitting up here forever. And like I say, we know you all. It's not that much of an issue with us. I think term limits are you know, really due at the higher levels where people don't know each other. See? So anyway, that's my 2 cents. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker, Madam Clerk, please.
Trying to turn this off. Our next speaker is Tony Wade.
You want to use this?
I have to use the computer. I have a thing I'm going to show real quick. I'm sorry. Good evening.
He's already talked to Brian about it.
Yeah, I got clearance. Yeah, so. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Yeah, I'm going to show this video real quick. Enjoy. Yes, I wrote a book during the pandemic called Growing Up
Imagine
in
you had invested in
Fairfield,
Google,
California.
Tesla, or Bitcoin
If I
back in
had thought about it, I would have put
2009.
Growing
Here's
Up in
the
Fairfield,
next.
because then I could have got people from Connecticut to buy it too, but I didn't think about that. But anyway, so it's about, as you saw, old school Fairfield. I grew up here since 1976. My family moved here, and it's a natural progression from the column that I write about, sort of about local history. And so now it is being published on September 6th, but I have pre-publication copies that are on the way, and I'm going to have them at the Tomato Festival. I'm going to be the MC doing the thing, announcing the bands and whatnot. And I'm also going to have a little booth, and I'm there to be signing books as well. So I'm hoping those come soon, because you know, the good Lord is willing and the Pewter Creek don't rise. I should have them, and I hope that this is my gift to all Fairfielders. I mean, it's actually not a gift because you have to buy it, but it's still it's a labor of love, is what it is. It really is, and I'm hoping that I'm really eager for people to have a chance to read it, because it's got things in there that, you know, if you live down the street, if you live down in Dixon, you're probably not going to get it. But if you live in Fairfield and you're old school, oh yeah, you're going to get this. And even if you didn't grow up here, it has things in there that you can definitely relate to. And one thing too, it's participatory. It ain't about me. It's about the people of Fairfield. I have a lot of quotes from all kinds of people from Fairfield growing up here. So hopefully you enjoy the book, and I'm looking forward to getting it in my hands and getting it into the hands of other Fairfielders. Thanks.
The Wade way works, doesn't it?
That's right.
Thank you, Tony.
Tony, will you have some of those shirts for sale too?
I will not have. I have two of these. I have one for me and one for my wife. So I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought about that, but it's enough trying to tell the books, man. I mean, this is all new stuff to me. So, thank you.
Madam Clerk, please.
Okay, I don't have any more public comments.
Okay. So we'll go back now to the agenda. Item number 3, please. Madam Clerk, if you would, please.
Item 3, first reading and introduction of ordinance 2021-17 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield, adding a new Article 17 to Chapter 11 of the Fairfield Municipal Code to prohibit spectators at illegal speed contests, exhibitions of speed, or sideshows. And our presenter is Matthew Thomas from the Police Department. Sorry. That's what it said on my sheet.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I am not Matt Thomas.
Lieutenant Brad Collins, sorry.
He is, Matt Thomas is much handsomer than I am, so that's the way you tell. I'm Brad Collins. I'm the operations captain of the police department, filling in for Matt Thomas, who's in San Diego, which is where I'd rather be. But if I could be anywhere other than San Diego, it's here with you guys. So we're going to talk about a proposed new ordinance to Chapter 11 of the Fairfield Municipal Code regarding sideshow spectators. A sideshow, as you can see on the slide, are gatherings or processions of vehicles where drivers race or exhibit stunts in the presence of spectators on highways, public and private property. I got to advance the slide. Hold on. There we go. So sideshows present a safety concern for large and small cities. Bay Area cities are frequently contending with large sideshows, some consisting of several hundred vehicles. These large gatherings have resulted in shootings, property damage, and traffic congestion. Sideshows travel to multiple cities, creating hazardous driving conditions along the way. In March 7th of this year, their sideshow activity caused a head-on collision on Vanden Road. The driver was arrested for felony reckless driving after severely injuring his passenger. Fairfield Police Dispatch receives over 900 calls a year reporting reckless driving. Many of these are sideshow events. The proposed ordinance was written by our staff and the City Attorney's Office and is based on similar ordinances in Anaheim and Stockton. Stockton's Special Projects Unit reports success with their ordinance, combined with standing up a county-wide task force, which the agencies in Solano County have also done. Enacting this ordinance, coupled with enforcement of the existing laws in the Vehicle Code and utilizing the county task force, would further deter this type of illegal activity in Fairfield. So the current state laws do not address the needs of our city. State laws currently prohibit reckless driving and speed contests on highways and some parking lots, but they do not address spectators. The spectators drawn to sideshows provide the motivation for the drivers and offer protection to those driving recklessly from enforcement by obstructing officers. Certain types of property are not covered by current state law, leaving cities without enforcement options depending on location. So what this ordinance will do, it will be unlawful for any individual to be knowingly present as a spectator at an illegal motor vehicle speed contest, exhibition of speed, or sideshow, or be knowingly present as a spectator where preparations are being made for an illegal motor vehicle speed contest, exhibition of speed, or sideshow. Unlike current state law, this ordinance will provide an enforcement tool to address the spectators at speed contests, exhibition of speed, and sideshows. This ordinance will allow for enforcement on private property, which is currently not covered by state law. Large industrial areas are often popular locations for sideshow events. The penalty for violation of this ordinance will be a misdemeanor, punishable by up to 6 months in jail and a fine of $1,000. The city attorney or district attorney will have the discretion to reduce the charge to an infraction. Just to recap, the Vehicle Code provides an enforcement tool already for drivers who participate in sideshows. Existing municipal code sections provide an enforcement tool against property owners who host sideshows on private property. A task force has been implemented to be more responsive to sideshows when intelligence indicates that one is planned. And what is left is to enact this ordinance to give police an enforcement tool against spectators at these events who help fuel sideshow activity. The best way to protect the community from the dangers of sideshows is to prevent them from happening in the first place, and we believe this ordinance will help do just that. And I'm available for any questions if there are any.
Comments or questions for the captain? None? Captain, I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
Is the district attorney likely to enforce this action once we adopt it?
Yeah, they were consulted also in the drafting of this ordinance.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any other comments, colleagues?
Yes,
Entertain a
Mr.
motion.
Mayor, Catherine here.
Go ahead. Chris.
I want to thank Captain Collins and Lieutenant Thomas, who spent a lot of time drafting this. After the March incident in which Jordan Steffner was hurt terribly when he was a victim of the head-on, I called to see the city manager to see if I could meet with our police department about making sure they had all the tools they needed to stop some of this. And I also sent to them, I'd done some research and saw that a city down south had already put together an ordinance or, a part of the ordinance to change things. I sent that forward, and Lieutenant Thomas and the chief and Captain Collins, they went to it. That's really fast. I talked to them in March, and here we are. And Lieutenant Thomas had been looking at some things like this. But, we're really leading on this. Vallejo PD is now, because we're looking at this, they're looking at it. And I just think that our police department's done a really good job. They moved quickly on this. And I think it will help save other people from being so horribly hurt, killed, all those kind of things. And I just wanted to give them plenty of kudos, and also the city manager for allowing me to work with them. And I just will hope that everybody will vote for this because it's a tool that's needed.
Thank you, Councilwoman Moy. Any other comments or questions? Okay. I will close the open hearing now. And do you have any requests to speak?
I do not have any comments.
We'll close the public hearing, bring it back for council action. Entertain a motion to...
I'm sorry, normally people fill out a speaker card, so I'm just a little confused. Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, this is my first meeting. So you have 6 months in jail and $1,000. So is the 6 months in jail equal to the people who are doing the driving, or is it more?
It depends on if it's their first offense or second offense.
So what is their offense if it's their first offense? The person who's driving the car.
It's also a misdemeanor unless they cause injury, then it could be charged as a felony.
So the misdemeanor, is it 6 months or is it longer?
It's less than a year.
So have we, as a city, put this out so that some of the young people in the community could know, as a spectator, that they could go to jail for 6 months? I understand passing a law to be safe, but are you properly notifying the folks who might actually go to these stupid events?
So that's a great question. And once they determine that we are going to pass this ordinance, if it comes to that, we'll do an aggressive education campaign. Absolutely.
But the ordinance is already passed, so
It is not.
So then what's this for then?
To introduce it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And ma'am, the next time you come to a city council meeting, fill out a request to speak card, please.
Do you want me to fill out a request for everything that's on the agenda, even if I don't know whether or not I have a question?
Whatever you want to talk about, you should list for us, please. That's how we manage efficient government. Thank you. Any other comments? We'll close the public hearing, bring it back for council action.
I'll make
Vice
a
Mayor has moved
motion
the action. Is there
to
a second,
pass,
please?
to pass this as it's been written and really well researched by our team.
Actually, point of order to the mayor. I think the motion that needs to be made, Councilmember Moy, if you're amenable to it, is to waive the reading and introduce ordinance 2021-17 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield, adding new Article 17 to Chapter 11 of the Fairfield Municipal Code to prohibit spectators at illegal speed contests, exhibitions of speed, or sideshows. This will be the first reading, and it will come back to the council for final passage.
Yes, that's exactly what I meant to say.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. The Vice Mayor, roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Bertani,
Yes.
Councilmember Moy,
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro,
Yes.
Councilmember Chim,
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro,
Yes.
and Mayor Price.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And now we go to council reports, please. Mr. Vice Mayor, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everybody out there, for being patient. And also, I think we all need, our hearts need to go out for all the people that have already lost their homes out there because of the fires. And also for our firefighters and all our first responders, that I have a feeling it's going to be a long, long month and another long month after that for a lot of these people. So I think our prayers go out to them. I also wanted to say National Night Out, even though we are going through another surge here of the pandemic, was a success. It was great to go out there and see everybody, and most of my colleagues were there, and we enjoyed talking to everybody, and hopefully next year it'll even be more, because hopefully this will be behind us. Of course, we said that last year, but there's another year to go, so we'll see. You know, I also wanted to do a really quick update on our 2x2 homeless subcommittee. I know that there's been questions about transparency, which I don't take very kindly to. So I just wanted to say that our executive staff from the county have now joined the working group from CAO's office and the mental health services manager, who's excited to see that Fairfield Center, I'm becoming a mental health center of excellence, and looking at both existing and future funding sources for the startup and operation costs for all three facilities. Most of the group that, from Vacaville, Fairfield, Vallejo, are looking at one-time ARPA funds and how they're going to spend it. All jurisdictions involved in this committee realize that they're going to have to share a cost. Also, Vallejo, who is the latest to join our regional subcommittee, which we're real happy about. We have some changes going on down in that city, which I think are very positive and can really help us out. Vallejo proposed submitting a regional application for the state's Home Key 2.0 funds to create permanent supportive housing tied to the navigation centers, improving chances of being awarded the funds. So a subcommittee within our committee will work on the application when the funding is announced. And I know that my colleague, Councilwoman Pandora, when it comes to her, maybe she needs to go next, which would be great, so she can follow up. So, thank you.
Good idea. Councilwoman Panduro, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so just to continue on the update regarding the 2x2, or as we're also calling it, the Homeless Regional Working Group. So just another update is that Vallejo is going to City Council next week to appoint 2 of their members to the working group. And then today, the city of Benicia reached out to Fairfield to see if they can also join the 2x2. So we expect them to also go to their council as soon as also. So as of right now, then we would have Benicia, Fairfield, Suisun City, Vallejo, Vacaville, Solano Sheriff's Office, and the County of Solano. So it's rounding out very nicely. We're having participation from all the cities, so that's going to be it's a great thing moving forward. And then just my other update is, since our last meeting, my colleagues and I actually attended 2 separate back-to-school resource fairs, which were well attended. We gave out backpacks, vaccines, there was eye screenings, food was given away at one of them, community resources. So it was just a really great way to start the school year, and for all the kids, a lot of our students to be able to go back to school with, a new backpack and supplies. And I know other churches also had back-to-school fairs as well. So just a thank you to all the community partners and organizations that participated within each one. I think it really made an impact in our community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Tim, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And just to follow up on what Councilwoman Panduro was talking about and the backpack giveaway, of course, we had great community partners, but I wanted to give a shout out, number 1, to Macy's. They brought $50 gift cards, and they brought a couple $1,000s worth. And 2, and just as importantly, the Lions Club was there, and they talked me into having an eye exam. And I'm like, no, 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 I wear glasses. And they're like, no, 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 come in. It was so cool. It probably takes 30 seconds. They'll hold a Polaroid camera up in front of you. And if you have an issue, and this is for the people listening, nonprofits especially, they will come to you. And if you can't afford glasses, they have an optometrist that will help you. If you can't afford an eye exam, the Lions Club will do this. And I wanted to give a shout out to them because it was something I didn't know about, but it was something so desperately needed, especially in a large part of Fairfield. So I would encourage anybody out there to get a hold of the Lions. They will do this, and it was, I've never seen it before. 30 seconds of your time, and they will come to you. And this was Bethel Church last week, and then they hooked up with the school district who was there, and I believe they were at St. Mark's on Saturday doing it. So a shout out to the Lions, and of course a shout out to Macy's and everybody else that was there. And the problem is when you start naming one or two, you're going to forget somebody. But to have a nonprofit like the Lions, and then obviously a commercial business in Macy's to step up, it was very well appreciated. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Tonneson, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief tonight. I know we have a long agenda. So the farmers market has been, it's as many people know, it's been moved to Texas Street, and we're entering I think our 6th or 7th week. But the crowds have been growing. It's nice to see, the families and kids out there. Fun on the Run is participating. It's been growing, and it's been really fantastic just to have the new people that haven't been to the downtown or maybe haven't been there in a while just come down and attend. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the farmers market, and I appreciate all the hard work everybody's putting in, because it is a lot of work. So just a shout out to all the staff too. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bertani, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to give, number one, a shout out to you, Mr. Mayor, for giving me the opportunity to attend the Eagle Scout Court of Honor last week for Troop 864, where Eagle Scouts Kent Robertson and his brother Cole Robertson were recognized, and where his dad, Glenn Robertson, is the Scout Master. I am a former teacher, so I gave a pop quiz at the Court of Honor, and my question was to both of those young men: what have you learned from the pandemic positive? What's the number one thing that you've learned from the pandemic? And both of them said unequivocally, family. How important it is to have your family, and sheltering in place, and, all of the things that happened in 2020. They learned that how important their family is. And so I was really inspired by that, and I was really reminded by that how much of a family we are here in the city of Fairfield. And so I just want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to engage that community. And I just want to thank Cole and Kent for the work that they've done in the community, and their dad and their mom for raising great Eagle Scouts. And it was just an inspirational, opportunity for me to be able to engage that. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thank you, Cole. Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Troop 864. It was awesome, and keep up the great work. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate your going there and doing that. Councilwoman Moy, your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended, well, we attended a lot of things, National Night Out, all that kind of stuff. But on top of that, I went to the school and the schools, Fairfield Susan Unified School District and City, and college, Solano College subcommittee. And we meet every 3 months. And this one, we really focused on the reopening of the schools. And, you know, it's amazing how much our staff, from the police department to all of us, and their staff work together to try to make things safe for our children going back to school. Now, you always have the jerks who decide to drive crazy, forget that anybody else is around. And it's very dangerous around school sites. And as we're going back to school this week, we really need to be reminded, even if we're not going to the school, that yes, there's going to be a lot of traffic around the schools. Yes, you need to slow way down, and people need to watch out where they're dropping their children off. Because there's a lot of accidents and people getting hurt and so on that is unnecessary. So that's really what we focused on, and the school district is still dealing with some other things, but it looks like they may have gotten those worked out. The other thing that I went to that was interesting was this weekend, I went down to the county event center and attended the redistricting for the county. They're doing the same redistricting as we're doing here. And this one was focused on the 3rd district, which takes in part of Fairfield and Suisun City. And what's important for us as the electeds that sit here is that I think that we need to engage, because what happens in the county districts affects us. Fairfield and Suisun City both have 3 representatives for the cities, and that's just too much. I really advocated that we had fewer, so you have people know who they're supposed to call. I know we have some of those issues here too, so I just want to urge my colleagues to get involved with that. There are still some more of these coming up. There were only 10 people there, and it's kind of sad. But I mean, we know how that is. People are busy, and on the weekends they want to be with their family. But anyway, I think they're looking to cut down on the number of districts that Fairfield is split up in, which makes me happy. And just as a side note, I'd like to say that I agree with John Takeuchi. I know that since we did put ourselves in districts, that there was a court ruling after that would have helped us if we would have known before. But I think it's something that down the line we should look at reversing. I don't think the districts are a great idea. It has caused balkanization. And then I wanted to say thank you to everybody in all of the backpack things. And we have another one coming up. This one is put together by Ball Metal, which is one of our great big companies. And every year they have this. This is their 8th annual year. And it's a cool thing. It's a car and bike show. And then they also give away, everything, the backpacks and all that. So it's really a fun day. They have a lunch there. It starts at 8 in the morning. You got to register for your cars to be shown by 10 o'clock, and then they have lunch, and it goes on, and awards are at 1. So it's just a whole lot of fun. It is a little bit later. It's September 11th, which is Saturday. And so people have time to get it. If they go to school and they don't have what they need, they can go out there. And again, thank you to everybody who went to all these things and so on. It's awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, and I should like to report that local artist Phil Glashoff is going to be closing his operation here in Suisun Valley. And he called and ask if the city of Fairfield would like to go out there and take a look at all of his sculptures and free of charge bring them in and donate them to the city of Fairfield. So I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to do that. And he went on to say that he would prefer that the city of Fairfield take just the ones that are made of stainless steel because they're more enduring. And then the other thing I'd like to brag about, the Community Services Foundation does an annual prime rib in the park at McNaughton Park, and that's coming up later this month. If you would like to participate, the Community Services Foundation raises the money to fund Fun on the Run. So it's $125 per person, but what an incredible evening it is. And then finally, I would like to share with you some really wonderful news. General Gong, retired Lieutenant General, Travis Air Force Base Commander, is going to have the Phoenix Spark Center in his former office on base. And Mr. City Manager, are you planning to attend too? Yes. That's going to be one of those really wonderful experiences. Imagine that, a general 100 years old. And that's the end of my report. Mr. City Manager, your report, please.
I don't really have anything. I sent an email to the council this evening informing you all that city staff that we will implement a mask mandate at City Hall for staff and contractors and those that are there as we deal with this Delta variant and the increases in numbers that have been happening. And we'll continue to watch that and continue to consult with the county health department as we move forward. But just as a matter of information to the council, I gave that directive this evening.
And Mr. City Attorney, your report, please, sir.
I have no report tonight, thank you.
Madam Clerk, your report, please.
Yes, I would like to let everyone know that there is a secure ballot box on the 4th floor of City Hall at 1000 Webster Street, so voters can drop off their ballots. The actual election day is September 14th, but a lot of people are mailing in their ballots, and if you prefer to drop it off at our secure location. And then also, we desperately need volunteers for the Tomato and Vine Festival. Especially those, we especially need tomato slicers for the Tomato Alley. So hopefully someone out there will hear my call and contact me tomorrow, and I can help them sign up. And that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. We turn now to presentations. Madam Clerk, if you would, please.
Yes, item 4, presentations, PG&E Community Wildfire Safety and Public Safety Power Shutoff Programs, presentation by John Costa with PG&E.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council members. My name is John Costa with Pacific Gas and Electric Company. I'm joined tonight by my colleague, Clay Merrill, who is the Government Relations Representative for PG&E here in the city of Fairfield. Thank you for the opportunity to come to you tonight to talk about our Community Wildfire Safety Program. So kind of just taking a step back, we wanted us to remind everybody that, wildfire risk across the PG&E service territory. So the Public Utilities Commission, in conjunction with CAL FIRE, has designated areas which are called high fire threat areas, Tier 2, which is elevated, and Tier 3, which is extreme. And you see the city of Fairfield here, just north of the city boundary. There are some Tier 2 elevated areas. And just kind of an overview of the county itself, we serve a total customers of 174,792. Out of that, 1,869 are customers that are in a designated high fire threat district. And also you see our line miles, both distribution and transmission, overall in the county, and how many of those fall within that designation. So what is Community Fire Safety Program? So it's intended to do 3 things: reduce the risk or potential of wildfires, doing so through our inspections and repair, enhanced vegetation management, targeted system hardening, and then improve situational awareness, so our Wildfire Safety Operations Center, weather stations, high-def cameras, and then ultimately reduce the impacts of our Public Safety Power Shutoff Program, a program that is a tool that we use during these times. And what we're trying to do to reduce that is to focus on areas of high risk, continuously improve based on feedback and past experiences, and then further expand our ongoing coordination with our various partners and support our customers and communities. And then there's this component of enhanced microgrid capability, so targeted microgrids in various areas. So what is new in 2021? So what we're doing to reduce the risk of wildfire, we are targeting 180 circuit miles for system hardening. We are tracking conditions with 300 new weather stations, enhanced vegetation management, which is another 1,800 circuit miles of the high-risk circuit miles. And then we've added 135 new high-def cameras to help in the monitoring of wildfires. And then we've looked at opportunities for reducing, again, public safety power shutoff impacts within our service territory. So we've installed an additional 275 sectionalizing devices. We've looked at weather modeling improvements of 5 days out to give you kind of a look at what's coming. And then we've looked at powering substations, so preparing these substations with temporary generation to reduce the impact of a public safety power shutoff in certain areas of our service territory. One component too is, what have we done versus last year to really support our customers? So we've got 16 in-language notification processes. We've got a new address alert component. This is really to help keep our customers and partners informed. We've increased our batteries availability for income qualified medical baseline customers. We looked at opportunities to ensure that the community resource centers that we provide have ADA accessible. We're working with meal replacement programs and then targeting additional partnerships with community-based organizations throughout California. So kind of an overview on Solano County. So where's this work happening? So it shows you 2020, what we've done, what's in progress for this year. And so I think two very important components here is the system hardening component, and that is made up of stronger poles, covered power lines, some targeted undergrounding. So we did 20 miles last year. This year we've got, have yet to complete 0. We've got 13 planned for 2021. The next slide will show you a little bit of the work we did post-wildfire, and that'll show you some of the work we've done on the system hardening. We've also targeted sectionalizing devices. So we did 23 last year, and I think if you've experienced a public safety power shutoff in 2019 versus 2020, you would have experienced a significant difference in that program. So we thought we'd take an opportunity to talk a little bit about the LNU Lightning Complex fires, some of the work that has been done to harden the system post-wildfire. So we have fully replaced upwards of 1,200 poles. We've hardened 250 additional poles and hardened 12 miles of electric wire throughout that area. We are currently, as of today, we are partnering with private property owners that have been impacted by the fire, where trees were felled on the property to make safe for us to rebuild the system. We started today in the field. We are working with those private property owners to remove that wood at our cost, to relieve the impact of that on our customers. So I thought I'd take a moment to talk a little bit about public safety power shutoff and what it is essentially. But it is our attempt to ensure that we turn the power off as a last resort to prevent wildfires during severe weather conditions. So high winds create dangerous conditions where we'll see branches, debris fly into our line, contact with energized power lines. It could damage our equipment and could cause a wildfire. To prevent such fires, we may need to turn off the power, and that's what is called a public safety power shutoff. Again, it's a tool to be used to address that potential. Now what we do once the power is off and once we receive a weather all clear, so that weather has tapered down, our team goes to work to inspect the system and to repair any damage that is identified once the inspections are complete. That is done by foot, car, and air patrol. If something is found to be needed repair, they will repair it. Once that is both the inspections and repairs are complete, we then restore the power. So what conditions lead to a PSPS event? And this is something we get a lot of questions on. The number one thing is red flag warnings, which we currently have. We start looking at low humidity levels, which we currently have. And then really the weather. So these forecasted winds, 20 miles sustained and gusts above 30 to 40 miles an hour. Those three in conjunction really we start focusing on the potential of. And then other conditions of the materials on the ground. And we have on the ground real-time observations. So we do have cameras, like I mentioned. We have patrols on the ground looking at everything before we make these types of determinations. If it is determined that a public safety power shutoff is necessary, we start communicating early and often to our partners, both here at the city, public safety, and our customers. For this year, another component that has been added to the decision-making process is the presence of trees that are tall enough to strike our power lines that may be outside of an easement, may grow tall enough to where if it were to fall and touch the line, it could cause an issue. So we're also taking that in consideration as part of our risk model when determining, one, work, and two, the conditions for a public safety power shutoff. So how will customers be notified? So again, we look at 1 to 2 days before. We'll start communicating with our partners 5 days out. We start posting this information on our website. We start letting our customers know 1 to 2 days out that we are in watch status. As that moves just before, we communicate to our customers, warning, and then we start communicating when the power goes out, daily until the power is restored, and again, once the power is restored. We do that through a variety of means, calls, emails, text messages. We also use social media and local news and radio to get that message out to our customers. So for 2021, we've enhanced our address alert system. So this is where you can go in and sign up to receive notifications about PSPS. It was typically specific to an address, you being the customer. We've expanded that to provide more layers so you can do not just your home, your business, your friends, your families, school, daycare, and those types of things to make sure you get updates on a regular basis if there is an impact to you and your loved ones. And that can be found at pg&e.com/address alerts. So what are we doing to prepare and our customers? So we're looking at opportunities for bringing these resources to bear. So we're increasing the resources to help our customers and communities before, during, and after a PSPS event. We're partnering with over 250 community-based organizations, sponsored food replacement programs. We are working with the California Foundation of Independent Living Centers, and this is really an opportunity for us to help with emergency planning, looking for backup power, accessible transportation to and from a community resource center, and then really looking at opportunities for hotel stays and food stipends through this foundation if our customers are impacted. We're looking at providing portable backup batteries, again, for income-qualified medical baseline customers in high fire threat areas. There's a generator rebate program. And then we are enhancing the way in which we provide information to our customers, so providing better information, in-language information to our customers. Here in Solano County, we're working with a couple of community-based organizations, so Meals on Wheels of Solano County, also working with the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano. And so I'd ask that if the council or the community has any other recommendations of other groups that we should be working with to really make sure we are providing what we can here in the city and the county, please let us know. And this last slide is really just about some more information. So on our website, there's a whole host of information about preparing. I would point out two that I think are really important. This first one about PSPS notifications. So again, that address alert. It really helps you be in the know not only for your address, but your home address, but your place of work, maybe daycare or other facilities that you want to make sure you're fully aware of. And then the other is this weather alert, so pg&e.com/weather, where we're tracking these conditions. We start to put this information up on a 7-day forecast to try to early and often communicate to our customers and partners about what we see and what we're planning and preparing to do. And with that, this is our number if you want more information on the program, along with wildfire safety at PG&E email, and then our pg&e.com/wildfire safety. And with that, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
We turn now to the consent calendar.
All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be...
Oh, excuse me.
Go ahead, Councilman Bertani, please.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions about the presentation that was just given. Thank you for a great presentation. One of my issues, and I'm speaking as a resident now, one of my concerns is that it seems like PG&E is, I don't know, it seems like we're reacting and we're not prepared. And so, I know that, we have generators and all those kind of things, but one of my frustrations, and this is just me as a resident, is that it seems like the infrastructure to deal with complex situations is not in place. It's not there. So I guess my question to you, sir, is what is PG&E doing proactively, not, responding to, not responding to, situations that happen, but what are we doing proactively to make sure that our infrastructure is in place so that our residents are protected?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. So one of the previous slides, I talked a little bit about system hardening. And so it's really targeting system hardening based on a tier 2, tier 3. And we have an algorithm that helps us plan for that type of work. Another aspect that we recently announced is our undergrounding program, where we're targeting 10,000 miles in tier 2, tier 3 to underground the system. And so those are proactive attempts to address, as you just mentioned, the issues with the infrastructure, or what may be perceived as issues with the infrastructure, to try to get ahead of what we currently find ourselves in. PSPS, or the Public Safety Power Shutoff Program, is really a tool to address these conditions that we see, just to prepare our customers to be safe. And I know it's not necessarily the most accepted way in which we do that. Our industry is about providing power, not turning it off. But to address your issue about what we're doing proactively, we're looking at opportunities for system hardening, just like the 10,000 mile program that we recently announced. Does that answer your question?
That kind of answers my question, but yeah, I'll take that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I would love the opportunity to come back and maybe meet with you one-on-one if you had some additional questions, to try to answer those for you.
I would appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We turn now to consent calendar. Madam Clerk, if you would, please.
All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be approved with one motion unless a member of the City Council or the public requests that separate action be taken on a specific item. I do not have any speaker cards on the consent calendar.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I would like to I'd like to pull item 7 for a quick comment and discussion.
That's agreeable. Otherwise, entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as submitted, with the exception of item number 7. It's been moved by Councilman Tim, seconded by Councilwoman Panduro. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Bertani?
Yes.
Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price?
Yep. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And we turn now to item number 7, please, Madam Clerk.
Item 7, Resolution 2021-195 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield appropriating $5,600,000 in American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 funds to respond to the COVID-19 emergency and address its economic effects.
So I have a question, clarification. I look back on the minutes of our council meeting before in July, and the direction of the council was clear that the navigation center would be at Shelter Solano. That is not listed here. And so I'm not comfortable voting on this resolution unless that goes on the record now, that is at Shelter Solano. Because
Okay.
that was the direction of the staff, of the council.
Understood.
Okay.
Yes.
And I can respond to that as well, if you'll let me. That is the staff's intent. As this was put together, we cut and pasted what was there before, but the intent has always been the Shelter Inc. We can put Shelter Inc. in there if you would like, if the council would like, instead of just Navigation Center. oftentimes we try to keep the resolution somewhat broad, rather than identifying one particular contractor or something like that. If, and we don't anticipate this happening, but let's say that as we're moving forward with this $1.5 million investment in funds, and something happens with the plan to do this at Shelter Inc., the staff would then come back to the council and say, look, it's not working there. You still have directed that this goes towards a navigation center. We have some other options here to do that. None of this money, even if it says Shelter Inc., would be spent without coming back to the city council. So it's not like you're saying, suddenly $1.5 million is going somewhere else. The intent was for Shelter Inc., and we can put Shelter Inc. on there if you would like. That's your call.
I would like to make a motion that we put it in there because that was the direction of the council. And I don't feel comfortable if it's not in there. I understand what you're saying, but that was the direction. And like I said, if it's not in there, then I won't vote for this.
Okay. I second that motion for it to be amended if we even need to do that. I would think that since that was our clear direction that, as he says, we shouldn't have to vote on anything. It should be automatic.
Yeah, but it needs to be in there on the record, definitely.
Yes.
Okay. Do we need to make a motion on that?
Yeah.
I'll make that
Mr. Mayor.
motion, that it's on.
Mr. Mayor, sorry. And I'm sorry, Councilmember Ricardo, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Since we pulled it off consent calendar, we do need to open it for public comment.
Okay.
Just to see if we have any public comment, and then if you'd like, I can help you with the motion to get the wording that you want in there.
Okay, that's good.
So we'll.
Are there any public comments on item 7? John Ekstrom, Executive Director of Shelter Inc.
Thank you. Oh, it's already rated.
It's live.
So I'd just like to make one clarification statement. So Shelter Inc. is the parent company. Shelter Solano is its own independent corporation, nonprofit, called Shelter Solano Inc. So I think in reference, it should say Shelter Solano Inc. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much.
You're going to amend your motion?
I believe I did say Shelter Solano, didn't I? Or no? Okay, well, why don't you walk me through it, David?
I think you have it right, Councilmember. I was
Right.
just going to suggest that if you want to make this, I think I understand what you're trying to do, is it would be a motion to approve Resolution 2021-195 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield appropriating $5,600,000 in American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 funds to respond to the COVID-19 emergency and address its economic effects, and to amend the resolution as presented to amend Section 2 to read ARPA funding in the amount of $1.5 million is approved for a Fairfield Navigation Center, specifically Shelter Solano, Inc.
That would be the motion.
I second that.
So we have a first and a second. We have a comment from Councilman Tonneson, please.
Yeah, just for clarification, so if we absolutely directed it to be Shelter Inc., Shelter Solano. If that would have changed, wouldn't we have changed the vote after that? If it didn't end up being Shelter Solano, and it would have had to come back to us, it just disturbs me that we definitely directed it to Shelter Solano, so I just want to kind of piggyback what Rick is saying.
Yeah, there was never an intent to divert those funds somewhere else from the council. The general rule is you look at what is it for. The council always has the ability to say, here's where it's going. So in other words, staff can't come in and say, okay, it's Navigation Center. I know they directed Shelter Solano, but we're going to put it somewhere else. All of that still goes through the council. The other side of that is, let's say that suddenly Shelter Solano has gotten out of that business, or somebody else has taken that shelter over, or or there's another plan that you want to do. You're going to come back and adopt a new resolution.
Right.
Rather than being able to just direct the staff, look, let's take a look at these other options, and that happens. Either way is fine. It's up to the council on how you want to do that. Being more specific takes away some of your flexibility, in that you have to bring it back for a new resolution.
That's fine. Okay.
Which is fine,
Yeah.
and we're fine with that either way.
Okay, so I want to make that motion, what David said. Right.
Okay.
Mr. City Attorney, I'm sorry.
And I need to take roll
Yeah.
on that vote.
Okay, sorry.
Councilmember Bertani?
Reluctantly, yes.
Okay, Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We turn now to new business, please, item number 18.
New business, item 18. Resolution 2021-207 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement between the City of Fairfield and PBK WLC for professional architectural design services for the Police Department Facilities Project. And our presenter is Ryan Panganiban.
And just for clarification, Council, you'll be voting on 18, 19, and 20 separately, obviously, but the presentation that Ryan is about to make will include all three of these. So just keep that in mind as he's talking with you, and then you'll take three different motions.
Do I then need to read 18 and 19 now? Okay.
Well, you don't need to read those now. Let him make his presentation, and then when it comes to motion time, action time, you'll go each one separately.
Okay, thank you.
So, good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Ryan Panganiban, and I am the Assistant Public Works Director and City Engineer. I'm happy and thankful to be here tonight to present items 18, 19, and 20 of the City Council's agenda. So if you recall, earlier this year at the Council Workshop, you heard about the ongoing challenges we are having with our aging building infrastructure. So for consideration tonight, these professional service agreements will kickstart the design process and move these highest priority projects forward. The first project is the planned improvements to our police department headquarters, which is located here at our Civic Center complex. The approximately 28,000 square foot building, which is highlighted here in yellow, was constructed in 1970 when it served a population of 44,000 residents. With the population projected to grow by nearly 3 times this, or over 120,000 residents at complete build-out, this 50-year-old building is undersized and operationally inefficient to support our police department presently and into the future. So to address this concern, a comprehensive assessment was completed to evaluate the long-term needs of the police department and identify a realistic facility option. The assessment was framed around 3 issues: available funding, staffing needs, and space. As staff evaluated the various ranges of possibilities, it quickly became apparent that an option could immediately be eliminated. This was the construction of a brand-new facility constructed somewhere on this Civic Center campus. For a project of this scale and magnitude, the only dedicated funding source is the city's AB 1600 Public Facilities Fee Program. So this development impact fee is a restricted fund that is intended for new development within Fairfield to pay their fair share of certain public infrastructure improvements. An analysis of the available revenue generated from this fee program showed that it would collect roughly $45 million at total build-out, whereas preliminary estimates for the design and construction of a brand-new police department headquarters would far exceed $50 million, making this option financially infeasible. The only viable alternative the assessment identified was the expansion of the existing building footprint, which is shown here in orange, and a future tenant improvement to reprogram the existing 28,000 square foot building. So the design and construction of this 12,000 square foot expansion, it would be the first phase of the project and is currently budgeted in the adopted 5-year capital improvement program. This expansion would allow for staff from the Investigation Bureau that's currently located at 1100 West Texas Street to be centrally located underneath one roof. Once completed, it will result in a consolidated police facility that will allow greater flexibility and police operation efficiencies necessary today and into the foreseeable future. So electricity, hot water, heating, cooling are currently provided by our central utility plant. which is located just north of these council chambers. And in an effort to ensure the new addition to the police department headquarters does not impact or further strain the demands on our central utility plant, it is important to include this work as part of the overall project evaluation. So as some of you may be aware, in addition to our police department headquarters, the city's central utility plant serves City Hall, our community center building, adult recreation center, and Fire Station 37. As we've recently experienced with unforeseen and uncontrollable power outages and intermittent loss of air conditioning and hot water, the electricity and mechanical components of the system are unreliable, antiquated, and ultimately at the end of its service life. So staff is recommending a phased approach to address the highest priority central utility plant infrastructure replacement. A key project which we're proposing is to allow for the electrical generation system, which we refer to as the cogen, to act as an island and provide power in the event that we lose PG&E electricity. This allows for the work to match the current available budget. As a separate future planning effort, we will look at a long-term, environmentally sustainable solution to improve the electrical system's reliability and resiliency. So to design and engineer these two projects, the city conducted a competitive procurement process. Staff was pleased with the amount of qualified consultants that were interested in Fairfield. This made for a very difficult decision. However, staff concluded that a team led by PBK WLC as the most qualified firm to provide services for the police department facilities and the modernization of our central utility plant. And this photo here is just an example of the work that PBK WLC has provided for other public safety buildings. So their scope of work for the police department project will follow a two-task process. The first will be to reaffirm the completed facility needs assessment. This work will be used to inform a schematic design level drawing of the interior space. The second task will be for PBK WLC to perform professional design services for the approximately 12,000 square foot addition. This work is estimated to be $1.5 million and approximately would take 18 to 24 months to complete. Regarding the central utility plant modernization, staff spent a considerable amount of time discussing the proposed delivery method for this project. And due to its complexity and increased involvement from a contractor installing the electrical and mechanical system, staff concluded that a design-build delivery method is recommended, and PBK WLC will assist the city through the preparation of a criteria bridging design document, which will define the required scope of services. Staff has negotiated a proposal with PBK WLC for an amount of $315,000, with the award of this construction contract anticipated for fall of 2022. The final project is a new fire station to meet the current and future demands of our Green Valley community. So currently, Fire Station 35, which is located at 600 Lopes Road, serves the entire Cordelia and Green Valley areas of Fairfield. A recent response time study of the station concluded that nearly 40% of the simulated calls exceeds the city's 5-minute response time requirement. So this response delay can be attributed to traffic congestion and challenges in crossing Interstate 80. The study concluded that the construction of a second station north of the freeway would greatly improve response time. And through the entitlement process of a multifamily project, which is located at Sassoon Valley and Business Center Drive, the city was able to secure an adequately sized parcel to construct this fire station. Staff has identified community facilities district funding to facilitate the design and construction of this new fire station. So utilizing this same request for qualification process, we were trying to identify an architect to design this project, and a key criteria in selecting the architect is finding a subject matter expert which is familiar with the design process to promote a longevity of use and minimize potential maintenance issues. Of the top firms that were interviewed, staff determined that a team led by Shaw Kawasaki Architects is the most qualified to provide architecture and technical engineering services for the station. Shaw Kawasaki will provide the design and construction support services for an amount not to exceed $1.1 million, and their proposal forecasts approximately 19 months of design, with construction anticipated for late spring or early summer. So in closing, staff's recommendation is to approve the 3 professional service agreements with PBK WLC and Shaw Kawasaki to progress the design of these 3 important building capital improvement projects. Thank you for the time, and I would be happy to address any questions you may have at this time.
Any comments or questions for Ryan? Excellent presentation, Ryan. Thank you very much. Entertain a motion then to approve Resolution 2021-207. Been moved by Councilman Tim. Is there a second, please? Second by the Vice Mayor. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Bertani? Councilmember Bertani? Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price?
Yes, and the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We turn now to item number 19, Madam Clerk, please.
Resolution 2021-208 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement between the City of Fairfield and Shaw Kawasaki Architects for professional architectural and engineering services for the Fire Station 36 project.
Mr. Mayor, you already received a report on that one, but I think you should.
Same motion, Mayor, to approve.
Or ask for public comment, and then you can take a motion.
Public comments on this item? Bring it back to council action? Okay.
So was the
Moved and
vote for all
seconded. Roll
3?
call, please.
No.
Oh, okay.
So you're looking for a motion on number 19 now?
19, yes.
Yeah, I made the motion for 19 because we have to do it
Okay.
individually, correct?
Right.
All right, thank you, sir.
And the second was?
The Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Bertani? Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price?
Yes, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We turn now to item number 20, please.
And Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, just,
Go ahead.
are these passing 6-0? Because I don't hear Councilmember
Yeah.
Bertani voting.
This
Oh,
is
I'm
a
sorry, yes,
6-0.
6-0.
I think
not
18 and 19 are 6-0 votes.
Yes.
0 votes, yes.
Thank
Sorry. Thank you.
And do I read number 20 then?
Yes.
Okay. Resolution 2021-209 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement between the City of Fairfield and PBK WLC for engineering and technical services for the Central Utility Plant Modernization Phase 1 project. I don't have any cards for speakers.
Presenter is David.
We had the
This has been
presentation.
presented, so just ask for some public comment. There's no cards if anybody wants to comment.
Does anyone
and then
have a
you'll take
public
action.
comment, please?
Same motion, Mayor, to approve.
Second. It's been moved by Councilman Tim, seconded by the Vice Mayor. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Bertani? Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price? That
Yes.
passes
Motion
6-0.
carries 6-0. Thank you. And our final item, item number 21, please, Madam Clerk.
Item 21, Resolution 2021-210 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield approving, authorizing, and directing execution of a joint exercise of powers agreement relating to the CSCDA Community Improvement Authority in the form of a public benefit agreement and approving the issuance of revenue bonds by the authority for the purpose of financing the acquisition, construction, or improvement of housing projects. And our presenter is Assistant City Manager David Gassaway.
And Mr. Mayor, before we present, I think our city attorney, do you need to touch on this?
Yes, I do need to make a statement as a city attorney. As you know, we are the firm of Richards, Watson, and Gershon. We have to declare a conflict on this item. We are the general counsel for the California Statewide Community Development Authority, also known as the CSCDA. And because of that conflict, we are unable to advise the city on this issue. The city does retain a special counsel for affordable housing issues of Goldfarb and Lippman, and Mr. Gasaway has been in contact with them. And so at this point, we will declare a conflict as to two clients, and I have to recuse myself and will step out of the room. And you can ask me back in once you're done, and I'll grab my stuff.
Thank you.
All righty. Good
David,
evening,
you-
Mr. Mayor, members of the council. David Gasaway, Assistant City Manager, here to present the Waterscape Apartments project that is before you. So as I'm just introducing, I would also like to point out that instrumental in the process for us to do our due diligence on this project was Latana Jones, our Housing Services Director, as well as City Attorney mentioned, we have representation from the firm of Goldfarb and Littman, so Isabel Brown from that firm. Goldfarb and Littman specializes in legal counsel for real estate and particularly affordable housing projects in California, as well as a consultant that we used for some financial advice, Mr. John Hamilton from CSG Advisors. I do have Latan here with me this evening for any questions as we get to that point in time. So what exactly is before you tonight? We were approached by the California Statewide Communities Development Authority, or CSCDA as I will refer to them, about a potential project here in Fairfield, which ultimately is the conversion of existing multifamily housing, an apartment complex, for moderate income housing with some affordability, some low income housing below 80% of area median income, which we'll get to some of that here in a minute. So CSCDA is a statewide joint powers authority that was formed back in the late 80s. That Fairfield has been a member of that joint powers authority for many years. They were formed as a partnership with League of California Cities and CSAC, the California, I forget exactly what, but the Counties Association, in order to be basically a government bonding agency. We have a couple members here from the project team. I'll let them do more of their background and introduction to CSCDA, as well as their partner in the prospective apartment project, which is Opportunity Housing. Again, I'll let them get into that. And so for the proposed project that's before you, ultimately what they're looking to do is take the Waterscape apartment complex. So I've put that here on a map. It's 3001 North Texas Street, an apartment complex that was built in 1990. It's 180 units, 66 one-bedroom units, and 144 two-bedroom units on North Texas, basically at the corner of Marigold, just south of the Raley's Shopping Center, up on North Texas, south of Manuel Campos. And so last month, the CSCDA and Opportunity Housing approached the city with the concept of acquiring this project with basically a governmental bonding capacity and converting it then over into affordable and moderate income housing. And so to discuss the exact proposal before I get into the rest of my presentation, I will introduce from CSCDA, we have James Hamill here, as well as from Opportunity Housing, we have Lauren Seaver. They're going to give you a little presentation on just the specifics of what the program is through CSCDA and their additional joint powers authority, as well as a little oversight on the project that they're proposing and how that conversion works and what that looks like. And then I'll jump back in and give you some of the staff analysis in the proposed project. So bear with me just one second.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gasaway, and good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is James Hamill. I'm a managing director with the California Statewide Communities Development Authority, and I'm here tonight to talk about who we are and what we do, what we're doing here, and then I'll have Lauren Seaver from Opportunity Housing Group go into the details of the project. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. It's great to be back in Fairfield. As Mr. Gasaway outlined, you've been a member to our authority since 1996. We were started by the League of California Cities and the California State Association of Counties back in 1988. We issued approximately $65 billion in debt in California, all in affordable housing, nonprofit 501c3 projects, infrastructure, clean energy, and multiple types of financings for cities and counties. Do I change the slides? David? Okay, you can go to the next slide. You can go to the next slide too. So what we're here tonight is a new program that the authority rolled out last year, June of last year. As Mr. Gasaway pointed out, there's this missing middle, which Ms. Seaver will get into a little bit more about how the function of the program works. But essentially, there is not a subsidy available for middle-income housing within the state of California. If you look at low-income housing and low-income housing, there are tax credits, there's tax-exempt bonds, there's other subsidies available from cities, the state, and other entities. This sector, the 80 to 120% sector, there is not subsidy, so CSEDA created this program to fill this gap. As you'll see on this slide, throughout the year we've issued 11 projects for almost $2 billion throughout the state. Majority of them are in Southern California. We just priced the Dublin deal this week, but it has been wildly successful based upon cities looking to fill this missing middle concept. We've worked with Lauren and her group, the Opportunity Housing Group, on a couple projects, and we're excited about this project here in Fairfield. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lauren to give you some more of the details on that project.
Good evening, Mayor Price, members of the council, and thank you very much to staff for all your help in discussing this project over the past months. We're Opportunity Housing Group. I'm Lauren Seaver. We are a locally based development and multifamily operating company located in Danville. And we have a long track record of managing large institutional portfolios of multifamily projects similar to Waterscape. We also work with team on our projects. The property manager of the Waterscape project will be Greystar if we are to go ahead with the acquisition. Greystar is the largest and most experienced manager of both market rate, low income, and workforce housing projects in California. And we work with Citibank as our bond issuer. So the workforce housing program is designed to address this need for missing middle housing. The middle income workforce makes up about 30% of the population in the Bay Area. Yet, as Mr. Himmel mentioned, there really are no tools like this to create affordable housing for that population. And so we are able to acquire these assets, financed 100% with bonds issued by CSCDA. And the city's role in the transaction is twofold. This is what's before you tonight. The first is to become a member of CSCDA's affiliate, Joint Powers Authority, CSCDA Community Improvement Authority. And the second is a public benefit agreement, which the city is party to, which I will discuss on a subsequent slide. So here's the project. It's a great project, 180 units, completed in 1990, nice package of amenities. Go to the next slide. So here's really what the benefit is to the community of the project. So we take the 180 units, we divide them into 3 tranches. 60 units are catered to low-income residents, so those are residents making less than 80% of area median income. So that's less than $62,000. Then we have 60 units will become middle-income housing, and 60 units will become moderate-income housing. And you can see the rent discounts are pretty substantial, an average of about $200 per unit up front. And an important thing that sometimes gets overlooked is the rent control that goes into place on this. So rents cannot increase by more than 4% per year under the program. And you can go to the next slide. And then the impact to the city of Fairfield. So the property does come off the property tax roll because of CSCDA's ownership, as they're a governmental authority. That results in a property tax impact of about $80,000 per year for the city of Fairfield. And in exchange for that, under the public benefit agreement, the city of Fairfield receives all of the net proceeds when the asset's sold at the end of the bond term. The city can exercise that as soon as you're 15 and through the end of the bond term. So we estimate here that it's somewhere between $95 and $135 million of value that would go back to the city. And you can go to the next slide. We also have a very strong operating program that we work through with Greystar. Our assets are funded with very substantial reserves up front, so they're very well maintained, and have regular audits by a third party to make sure that the capital budgets are strong and the assets getting maintained in a very high quality manner. The next slide. So in summary, there's an opportunity here. We have Waterscape in contract to immediately convert the 180 units there to low, middle, and moderate income housing. Rent savings annually to the city or to residents are $440,000. The city would give up the property tax of $80,000 per year, but reap the benefit under the public benefit agreement of somewhere between 95 and 135 million at the end of the bond term. So we're here to answer any questions, and thank you very much for your time.
Any comments or questions? Councilman Tim, please.
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple of questions. Have you seen our staff report?
Yes.
That we see? So I want to go to, it talks about they don't guarantee compliance with either affordability or operational, right? And then it says, since the city is not a party to any regulatory agreement, do you have any projects where you have this regulatory agreement with cities?
Yes, so all of the workforce housing projects, you saw the 11 that have been closed so far this year, they all have the same form regulatory agreement.
Right.
And it is between CSCDA and recorded on the property. But the bond investors require substantial reporting in association with that. So we have to report compliance to CSCDA and to the bond holders. So that becomes a publicly reported document, although the city is not a party to it.
Okay, because my concern is, and part of it is, how do we ensure that they keep this property in Class A condition?
So we have a great deal of experience with that. We've, through our team and our company, managed large portfolios for large institutional programs. And Greystar has as well. The bond investors are very demanding in that respect. So they want to protect the quality of the asset that's securing their bonds as well. So we're all aligned in making sure that the asset is operated to a high quality. There's a significant amount of upfront reserves that are funded for capital, including a $500,000 reserve that's unallocated for any specific purpose that just sits there, and then ongoing additional funding that covers capital improvements on the asset.
So, according to the staff report, if something failed, the city has no recourse. We can't force it, because here's my concern is, I've seen this happen before, and then all of a sudden it starts turning into projects because your management slips, or then it becomes an increased call for service for the police department, public works, fire department. How do we ensure that won't happen here?
I'll let James answer that.
Okay.
So, Councilmember Tim, it's a very good question, and we get this a lot.
I bet.
Cities. And so the city is a third-party beneficiary to the regulatory agreement. So if there are issues with the project, let's say, because you are closest to this project, and if you are getting multiple police calls, fire calls, there's problems at the property, you would let CSCDA know, just like any other affordable project that we do within any city, including the city of Fairfield. We have the recourse against an Opportunity Housing Group to remove either them or Greystar as the manager of that property if it falls into disrepair. Ultimately, our duty is to you as the city. Our duty is not to the developer.
Good answer.
Because our duty, you are our member. So our duty goes to you alone and not to Greystar or Opportunity Housing Group.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think it's fair to have David respond to that, though, as well, I think.
Well, that was
And he's got
my
some
next-
additional stuff
Yeah, and
that
I've
he's going to want to
got
present.
additional slides that we can cover. I mean, if you guys have specific questions there, and then I can get into it,
Right.
the rest of my presentation as well.
I just want, I have some additional questions, but I wanted.
Go ahead.
But I know
Okay.
our assistant city manager has been waiting over there, so let him present, then I can ask my questions. Thank you.
David, go ahead, please.
So in looking at this deal, or this proposed project, staff has spent just about as much time as we can or could have in the last month in really doing due diligence. We've spoken to a lot of cities about their experience with these. We've spoken to cities that have either done the project, some of which Mr. Hamill had listed in his slide, as well as some cities that have not done these deals or have not entered into this program. And so on the outset, I want to say that there are certainly the potential for good benefits to the city for this project. One of which that we listed in the staff report is we are, pro-affordable housing. That's why we hired Mr. Jones. That's why we've built a real housing services department and restructured, as the city manager did when he got here, in order for us to start building that operation. So one of the things that we are working on, and in fact in the next couple of months we will be bringing to you some additional policies for consideration, is something that out of HCD, the State Department of Housing and Community Development, is a pro-housing designation. What that provides is that provides additional points in grant applications for competitive funding opportunities, and really helps to establish Fairfield as as an agency that's out there aggressively pursuing housing. And there's, I think it's 30 points in total for the designation. This middle income housing would provide us potentially 2 points by entering into this program and doing these projects. As proposed and as the project proponents pointed out, on average there's about a 10% rent decrease that's identified. Most of that ends up being, in terms of the benefit, is on the low income side, so those 60 units that are below 80% of area median income. But that is as proposed, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. It also, the program does have this 4% per year rent cap, which is akin to rent control. Now, a couple of the particularly LA County cities that we spoke to were proceeding with this program because it was in effect a rent control strategy without the cities having to adopt some rent control ordinance. And in those particular cities, their concerns really just runaway rents, rents that were starting to just creep up and up and up. And then the final is Assembly Bill 787. So legislature just went back in session yesterday. There are an enormous number of housing bills that are before them right now. But one of them is AB 787, which may provide RHNA benefits, so Regional Housing Needs Allocation. There's been lots of talks throughout the state with most cities, RHNA allocations really skyrocketing and becoming what some believe are potentially unachievable. Well, AB 787 would provide, again, if it's adopted and written into law, would provide cities credit for the affordable units. So those 60 units that are below 80% of area median income on this particular project, we may have the opportunity to get RHNA credit for those. I do believe that CSCDA and Opportunity Housing do deserve credit for advancing this bond debt structure. It's novel, and it really is a viable solution for some of this missing middle housing, which has been something that has been a tough puzzle to put together here for lots of agencies. But it's not without its concerns, as we did our due diligence, and so I'll cover some of those concerns, just so as council, you guys get into deliberation or asking questions, you guys are making an informed decision. The first is an area where, quite simply, we have disagreement with CSCDA in terms of the strength of the regulatory agreement. So this typically in an affordable housing project, where there is public subsidy provided, the local agency is going to have some enforceable position within that regulatory agreement. And I think, as Councilmember Tim was somewhat alluding to, that is an authority where the city then can step in and cause actions that would require compliance with that regulatory agreement. And in fact, when we started digging through some of the other deals in the bond memos and had that looked at with with Goldfarb and Lippman, what we saw was, yes, indeed, there is a regulatory agreement. Yes, indeed, that regulatory agreement does talk about these income restrictions, but ultimately, we don't believe that that is something that has any real teeth to it. Yes, it's there. And so, for example, this was just a bond disclosure memo from Long Beach, and in that, it identifies that any of the income restriction categories will not result in a default under the indenture agreement, which is the third party that is confirming that all of the requirements under the bonds are being followed. It does say that it would be a default if there were not best efforts to meet the targeted income restrictions, with the sole remedy being specific performance, and then it goes on to use words like can and may, not shall and will, which are typically the teeth in language that makes those requirements. So that was one thing that we felt is, is a little looser than maybe discussed. And we were not alone in that. A couple of the other cities that we talked to had that same concern. The deal is funded by property tax. Now, the project proponents pointed out that it's $80,000 a year in today's dollars to the city, but the ad valorem property taxes go well beyond the city. We only get about 16.5 cents on the property tax dollar collected. So all taxing entities within Solano County really is more like $540,000 a year. So when we're talking about the level of subsidy that's going to the project, that $540,000 is the level of subsidy that's going to that, and over a 30-year period, we estimate that to be about $22 million in total, which is one of the other areas where, again, this is a little untypical when you look at publicly subsidized affordable housing. Just very simple math breaking that down, that $22 million over the 30 years results in a $120,000 per door subsidy for conversion of those 180 units, which is a little bit higher than you would typically see on an affordable housing project. And with those affordable housing projects, typically you're going to have deeper targeting, whereas the units in this project, where they're at this 100 and 120% of area median income, currently based on market rents at Waterscape and sort of typically in Fairfield, the restriction on the rents for those income categories can afford the market rents. So, a lot of subsidy, a little bit higher than would be typical for arguably some segment of the population that can afford rents in Fairfield and at this project. There are fees, and those fees for this project are not tied to performance. Typically in an affordable housing project, or typically in something that's publicly subsidized, those fees are tied to performance. Again, back to Councilmember Tim's comment about the quality of how it might be maintained. That's a pretty typical structure that's there, and again with city oversight of that ability, and then as well as with the bonds and the repayment. Now, it's a little bit loose in terms of those tie-togethers. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that the debt does not have to be paid. Absolutely, it does, and I'm certain the project proponents can speak to that. But it's rather that CSCDA as the issuer doesn't operate the project per se. They have Opportunity Housing there, who is the one then that is getting the financial benefit of the pretty substantial fees. So one component of the fee that's charged, about $120,000 per year, goes to CSCDA, and substantially more than that then goes to Opportunity Housing. And the real sticking point there is, because it's not tied to any of that performance, that in the end, Opportunity Housing in the front end is not taking very great a risk on this project. So there's no equity or capital investment that they're putting into the deal, which is typically where those fees come back. As well as the level of those fees, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a later slide, equate to a little bit higher than a typical affordable housing deal or publicly subsidized deal. One of the other concerns, which was really our ability to negotiate more favorable terms. Now, I want to give Mr. Hamill and CSCDA and Ms. Seaver and Opportunity Housing their due credit. We've had lots of back and forth with them. We've worked out, various ways in which the structure could potentially work out, and they have made some offers that do make this better. Again, I'll get to that here in just a second on a subsequent slide. The other concern that we came across as we were looking at all of these deals was some of the larger, mostly the larger, more sophisticated housing development operations in the state, San Jose, Oakland, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Mateo, Hayward, so on, were not participating in these types of projects. And there was sort of a theme throughout that the things that we were discovering and staff had some concerns with, they had many of those shared concerns, as well as in conversations with Goldfarb, they had raised those things as well. One of the other concerns is the value as well that's being offered on this project. So basically the bonds would be issued for a transaction price of $77.5 million. Now, Waterscape sold last in 2019, November of 2019, so a little shy of 2 years ago, for $48 million. Advancing from $48 million to $77.5 million in less than 2 years would represent more than a 60% appreciation on the value of that property. Now, a major reason for that is because when you remove the property taxes, so because it's governmentally owned by CSCDA and they're exempt from those property tax payments, that additional $500,000 per year comes off of the operating bottom line. So when you then do the calculation and apply a cap rate, it helps to elevate that property value. But on the front end, prior to this coming to City Council, there hasn't been an appraisal that we've seen that justifies that $77.5 million valuation. Now, in conversations with CSCDA, they identified that certainly a appraisal is required as part of the bond issuance, because the underwriters and anybody that's going to be lending debt on the property is going to want to know that they're lending appropriately. So eventually there will be an appraisal, but again, our concern is with that, sort of being reverse of how one of these deals would typically come to the fore, where, we would kind of understand what the overall structure and the cost of that would be and make sure that it's reasonable, since, again, it's taxpayer dollars funding it. As well as with that high purchase price, that, there would be some concern of sort of crowding out, or, does this transaction then start to raise those market values of other properties, which make the sale of those other multifamily properties more attractive, and in doing so, more properties start changing hand. If they're market rate, then that's what starts to drive those rents up. So again, that's not saying that this is what would happen, but these are things that are concerns that we're simply bringing up for you to consider. And then as well as the promised value at the back end. So because of the public benefit agreement that's a part of this, where the city can force the sale of this asset after 15 years or through year 30, and the value that Ms. Seaver spoke of between 95 and 130 million, that's not a value that we dispute when you use the assumptions. But whenever you're trying to project 30 years in the future and a property values or land values, it's all about those assumptions. And so when we put in to that same pro forma model standard assumptions that we would typically see on an affordable housing deal, where you're looking at revenue growth revenue growth under expense growth, their assumptions in terms of getting to that 95 to 135 million value was 3.5% per year annual revenue growth on the property and 3% expense growth. So revenues outpacing expense increases on the property, whereas more traditionally in a public project, you would use 2.5% revenue growth and 3.5% expense growth. Again, because this, components of this housing in the 100 and 120% area median incomes might be pushing more of that market rate, we're not saying that's right or wrong, but simply that when we ran the numbers using more traditional assumptions, that value does come down. And so looking 30 years in the future, that guarantee or that value to the city in the future is not known. As well as one final point there in terms of that sale, because other taxing entities are losing out on their property tax on this as well, one of the things that CSCDA recommends but doesn't require is that cities, upon that sale of one of these properties, share the proceeds of that sale with the other taxing entities. So that means, whatever the proceeds were, say they were 95 million, then the question is, okay, 30 years from now, how much of that gets shared with the school district and with the county and any special districts that are getting those property tax revenues that would be foregoing those property tax revenues for 30 years. And because this is a novel concept, these have been a year and a half, I think, maybe this structure, those details, those dynamics of conflict between other taxing entities have not been worked out yet, and so there's simply unknown risk there that you should be aware of. So, where do we go from here? In the staff report, we didn't make a clear recommendation. I've given you what amounts to my professional staff opinion here tonight, but we did set this item up based on how council, your questions and how your deliberation goes. We did set this up to where if council decided tonight to proceed with CSCDA and Opportunity Housing and do the deal, you can do that. So the resolution, the public benefit agreement, all of that stuff before you tonight is ready to rock and roll, ready to go if you so choose. And what we do think that would sort of bridge the gap between a project proponent identifying certainly a clever and admirable new program and staff's opinion that maybe it's not in the best interest. We have some terms that we think that if your direction to us was to go back and to continue to negotiate, and if we can come to agreement with the proponents, that it would really create a win-win for both for all involved. And so the first one of those would be some form of city oversight within that regulatory agreement. Now, one of the ways we could get to that, what we did ask for, and this is one of the areas where they were very great to work with and coming up with a concession, was funding the city for some sort of project monitoring costs so that annually we could monitor to ensure that everything on the property is operating as it's supposed to. And so we have on the screen, an amount not less than $25,000. That's because that's about what we estimate our costs to be when we get into doing this, the staff time and so on and so forth. Now, CSCDA and Opportunity, they did put forth a per door fee of $175 per door, so that'd be about $31,500. So it would meet in staff's opinion, it would meet the time and cost. We may also want to see some sort of inflator there. Again, we haven't mathed that out, but a couple of I think the Long Beach. A deal in Long Beach did have an inflator on theirs. We would believe if there's some way to tie property tax exemption to the level of affordability received. So, for example, because the price is so high, we believe there's more room for rents to come down within the deal. So whereas a third of the units are affordable at under 80%, when we've done our pro formas and looked at the deal, we actually think that there's an opportunity for more units to be in that lower income category, which provides more benefit to our lower income residents that certainly are struggling more with affording market rents than is currently proposed. We also, think that there could be some middle ground in terms of revising the valuation, whether that valuation is fine, at least trying to structure it on some sort of current appraisal. And again, the more that purchase price would go down, then that same amount of subsidy, the more affordability could be provided through the units, and then tying somehow their fees to performance. So as we're out there and we're annually monitoring this, there is Opportunity Housing's asset management fee has an inflator on it of 3% per year. So each year it increases sort of automatically within the project, and tying that to sort of more of a project standard. So right now, their fee is about, 80 to 100% more than you would have in a typical tax credit deal, and that's something we could likely be okay with. We would preferably see that come down, but if the fee is what the fee is, that's fine. But then tying the inflator to confirmation then that there is performance within the parameters of the regulatory agreement. So those are things that if you were to give direction on your staff report, we gave you quite a few alternatives, which isn't, again, typical. I must say it's not the typical situation where we're bringing you something where there's sort of, competing opinions on it. But, if that direction were provided, then these are the types of things that we would recommend we go and try to see if we can't negotiate on this project. So with that, that's my presentation. I'm available for questions, as well as Latan, who's a little bit more versed on this stuff than I am.
Councilman Tim, please.
Mayor, just real quickly, have you seen this slide?
Yeah, leave that up.
Okay, go ahead and leave that up, and I yield. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
No, I'll let Councilman Tonneson, I just wanted to say, David, very detailed, okay? I know that in the staff report, it says the city doesn't take a stance. It sure looks like they have, to be honest with you, but that's just my opinion. So I'm going to I'll have more questions, but I'll let Councilman Tonneson go. Go ahead.
Councilman Tonneson, please.
That one's all watered down.
Good presentation, David. That was a lot. I guess I'll just work off of this screen here, because you kind of closed well. You talked about the taxes. So, what is your biggest fear, David? What do you think is the biggest risk? If you picked one item, what concerns you the most?
Overall, that the taxpayers are getting the best bang for their buck. That would be it. Now, again, I want to, make clear, and I appreciate Vice Mayor Vaccaro's comment, that we haven't really taken a position, but it sounds like we have. A lot of this is unknown. This deal, you all could decide to do it, and we execute on everything, and Opportunity Housing performs exactly as they've stated, and it works out well. One of the dynamics with the 4% per year inflator, cap on increases in rents, we did not have time to do a market study to determine, okay, what has been the historical trend of rents in Fairfield? Where do we project they're going to go over the next 30 years? And that is an area that, is pretty rock solid in terms of, the benefit.
I
but
don't
it's
disagree.
it's just about, when you look at these publicly subsidized deals, this one doesn't really fit the mold, and, is it the best bang for the buck for taxpayers?
And I don't disagree with the wanting more time on that, but I'm still not, we've talked about this, and the risks aren't glaring out at me. I'm not seeing the deal breaker. No. We can't. This is too much risk. I'm not getting that from your presentation. I'm not getting that from their comments. The revised property value. So you talk about the appraisal. What happens? You're going to increase the prices of the units around it. This isn't an arm's length transaction. This is something totally different. I don't know that, and I only have the residential experience, but I don't know that a property that sells for 60% more than it did 2 years ago is going to be a valid or viable comparable to somebody that is out there appraising another apartment complex, because the lender is, in my experience, would typically throw that out. That's not going to be something that they're going to count. So I don't see a reason why we would revise the property valuations to standard. I don't, unless there's some tax ramifications there that I don't know about. But if we're not paying taxes, then I don't see that as being an issue, or I don't see number 3 as being something, or I'm sorry, 4 as being something that I would be concerned with. If they default it, who's harmed if they default? I know that, I'm sure hopefully that's not something they're going to do, but we don't have a lot of skin in the game other than taxes, correct? Okay. I guess I want to get to who wins. It seems like there is, there's nothing that we're doing that is the middle income affordability. I think that's a win. I'm trying to get as in depth about this as I can, but I just don't see the major risk. I wouldn't mind seeing the numbers, the 4% that you're talking about, but to me, that's not something that's a deal breaker. Maybe you guys can come together with us on some of the things that David is asking for. The RHNA numbers. What is the amount of RHNA numbers that we need, and how many do we have? And if that's a question, I'm not trying to gotcha.
Off the top of my head, I don't know the exact numbers, but in the current cycle, a lot, right? We're really short. There's, so quite a lot.
But when you look at those RHNA numbers, you need to understand that they're split up with the low, the middle, which ones you need.
Right,
And
that's
it's
what
the
I'm saying, is
low-
maybe
the-
they can come together with.
Yeah,
some
it's
of
the really low ones where we're struggling the most. Those are the ones where
Yes,
you've got a lot of
That would be
subsidies and
something that I would like
programs,
to see
because
if
that's
they
the
could
ones
come-
that you're struggling the most
They
with.
could meet us down there. But I think I've spoken enough. I think I've heard enough. I really dug into this one, and I wanted to try and feel both sides of it, and I'm ready to make my decision. But go ahead,
Mr. Vice Mayor, please.
All right, thank you. Hey, David, first of all, I want to say what I said, that's not being detrimental to the city. I appreciate it because you're being honest, about your feelings, and that's all I can hope for, right? I do have a question for either Mr. Hamel or Ms. Severs about the rent. So the average rent is that will go down how much again?
Not $200 per unit.
Per unit?
Per month.
Per month. Okay, and then another issue that Mr. Hamel brought up, so if things were to go south, then CSCDA is that true, takes over at that point? Or how did you step in? Can
The
you kinda-
bondholders would foreclose and sell the asset.
Okay, so
Pay the
what
bonds.
is CSCDA's?
So there's two issues, is that if the bonds were to go into default,
Okay.
then there would be a foreclosure and we would sell that property to another.
Okay.
If the property is not being kept up or too many police calls, then we would terminate Opportunity Housing Group, Greystar, whoever is the problem child here, and put in
Okay.
someone else in that position.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify your role there with that. Thanks.
I have a couple of quick questions for you. The buildings are 31 years old. Have they been properly maintained? Would they pass any reasonable inspection?
Yeah, so we've conducted a property condition assessment with a third party, and we've budgeted for the maintenance items that they monitored, as well as some other optional upgrades that we elected to do. And then we have an additional budget alongside that. And then they also do a 10-year capital projection, which we update every 10 years and use that to project forward on future ongoing capital needs.
So the heating and air conditioning systems are functioning properly?
Yes.
And the roof is in good shape?
Yes.
And the plumbing is working very well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Tim,
I have
please.
some questions.
Councilwoman Boyd, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I've spent a lot of time going over this, reading it, and I would have liked to have those slides that were presented tonight, that Dana presented tonight before as part of our thing. But I have looked at this upside and I don't see a real upside for the city of Fairfield. First of all, if we're trusting our staff, which we try to do, and the staff's not making money on this, so they don't really have a dog in this fight. Everybody else is making millions or hundreds of thousands. They're making lots of money, and we're basically co-signing in a way for this. But we're losing, we and our schools and our county, according to our staff, would be losing about $20 million in property taxes, which we rely on, which the schools rely on heavily. I think that's a strike against it. I want to know, the other risk, and it's a big risk to me, is when you put your name on something, you usually have some kind of power. And even with what David says there about getting $25,000, or more, I think it has to be more than that if we did it. The bottom line is we still have no control. They can say, oh, but we'll listen, but we'll do that. I am just not comfortable with people who are making lots and lots of money, and God bless them for it, saying that they're going to listen to a city. I just don't see that happening. And I'm also concerned that this has only been going on, this kind of stuff, for about a year and a half in this way. It's still early, and the big cities are not doing this. And there's got to be some reasons for it. I don't know. And then the last thing is, we're sitting around here and we always skittle around and talk about, oh, well, the state wants us to do this and do that. You know what? I don't give a rip what the state wants. The state can't take care of its own problems at all. And then they put all this stuff on us. Are you kidding me right now? Fairfield does not need to be known as the affordable market in the Bay Area. We need to be known as a family-friendly place. And yes, that means that people who are working need some place to live. I'm all for that. But we need more control. And, handing stuff over or running and saying, we got to do this and that because we're not meeting this and that. Come on, guys. We got to stand up for our people here. $20 million is a lot of tax money, and even if we're off, let's say it's half, it's a lot. It's a lot of money. And I'm uncomfortable with this right now unless things really, really change and we get more of a grip on having more oversight and a real legal mechanism in there that tells us that we have control. And on top of it, it sounds like our city attorney, who's filling in, doesn't feel great about this either. I would like to have them here to talk to us. So, right now, I'm just like a big fat no, unless things change. And that has to do with us getting some money back, us getting some control. And that's it. That's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Tim, please.
I was going to offer to Ms. Panduro. Yeah, you haven't said anything. Go ahead.
Councilman Panduro, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So, and to the mayor's point earlier, you were asking about the conditions of the apartment complex. So I actually used to live there. And so I can attest to personally that the building and everything is up to code and modern, and I did not mind living there at all. I never had any issues, aside from the fires getting a little bit too close one time. But aside from that, I live on my own and I felt safe. Never had any issues. The property manager, I think, was Greystar by the time I left. So they were, anytime I called for anything, they were on it. And so I had a positive experience there. And just with regard to the property itself, I understand, obviously there's a concern with the control, and I get that. And obviously we're taking a leap into the unknown, and it is a risk. But I think that we owe it to our workforce to be progressive thinking. And yes, it's a lot of money that we might be losing, but at the same time, I look at the impact that it will have on many families. I think about people within my own family who are single parents with 2 kids and can't afford an apartment right now because it's so expensive. And they're crammed into a 1-bedroom, a lot of families. And so I think this would give the opportunity to, at least for them to have options and for us to be able to provide an alternative, alternative housing that we currently are in need of.
Thank you. Councilman Tim, please.
Yeah, question for city. Did we do the same thing at Verdant Business Center 3 or 4 years ago?
Yes, a little over 2.5 years ago or so.
Give or take, time flies.
Yes.
And cost of living goes up, because I know you don't have the numbers, 3%, 4%. I think it was 4.2 Bay Area last year, correct? Cost of living.
Oh, yeah, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. I guess my point is that Sacramento's not going to help us. They'll put a slew of bills through. We have, what do we have here? We have a homelessness problem, which this won't solve, but we have so many people that we're trying to move from workforce housing. And I look at it this way. This is your bus drivers, your grocery store workers, rookie cops, new nurses, people from Travis Air Force Base, of course, they get BAQ. Yeah, it's different, and to Ms. Moy's point is it's a $20 million taxpayer hit. Yeah, but it's spread out, and I look at the back end. And if we don't do anything, if we want to kick it down the road, kick it down the road, and I've kind of changed my mind, because how can anybody afford an apartment here? They're building apartments here, and the rent's going to be $3,500 a month. I mean, it truly is. And you're going to build 2 classes of people. You either got it or you don't. And there's no protection in between. And I look at the council as there comes a time when it's not a crap shoot so much. You kind of look at the odds. But if nobody does anything and they all want something to change, it will never change. I would like to see protection, and the money end, the bond end, that's protected. But I'm more concerned about the neighbors that live around them, because I do not want it to turn into a project. I want protection where if we don't like what's happening, that we can actually step in and force to make our standards apply to what's going on there. And that's why I asked you if you've seen the favorable terms of negotiation for the city, that slide. But I absolutely intend to vote yes to go forward with this, but I would like to see the favorable terms aspect, and I understand it's give or take. You might not be happy, might not be happy, but they call that a successful negotiation, right? It's a lot of money. You're going to pay, I don't think you're going to pay overvalue for the place. To Ms. Moy's point, people are making a lot of money. Well, that's what happens in California. People are here to make money. I don't want you to make it off the taxpayers' backs, but more importantly, I don't want you to make it off the community's backs by higher police calls or running down the neighborhood. And that's not to say just because you don't have money that you're not a decent person, because I know that's not true, and I don't want anybody to conflate that. But because if you keep that property up and the property next door goes up in price, somebody's going to like you. And this is how you bring a neighborhood up. This is how you change the demographics. But you got to give them, you have to give the people the ability to be part of that change and moving up. So I intend to vote for it. Mayor, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor, please.
Okay. I appreciate the comments by my colleagues. Just to kind of piggyback on what Councilwoman Pandora said, look, as a council, we talk about at our council retreats, hey, affordable housing, yeah, that's what we want. That's something we really want. We don't do anything about it, right? But I do have to give you credit, David, because, you talked about what you are starting to do about it. Affordable housing, I mean, that's something high on your list. We talked about it. But to me, this is an opportunity to kind of like, I think Doris said it, it's like a leap of faith, okay? I mean, to me, I think we need to take that leap, because if we don't, then, who knows what the next project's going to be. I mean, for me, it's a building that already exists, and like Doris said, it's not, sorry, Councilwoman Pandora said, it's a safe environment. I mean, lowering the rent is not going to bring down that building. It's not going to, I mean, this is a workforce housing project, what we talk about all the time. Look, I was a teacher at one time. I know, what workforce housing was needed, because I needed it probably at one time. But I think that is something that, that we really need to look at, because there's so many people out there that need affordable housing and need some rent control. And if we don't provide it, these rents are going to go up anyway. We know that. Rents are going to go up in our city, period. And it's going to go up there, too. I just think that this is an opportunity to provide the correct housing for people that need it. So I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate everyone's comments here, but I intend to vote for it because I think it's an opportunity we need to take that chance on, and I don't know how much of a chance we're really taking. I think it's a good opportunity.
Mr. Mayor, I just have one last comment.
Councilman Boyd, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. So I totally appreciate, and I always support affordable housing, this and that. Again, I can't do it here because it's $20 million. That's a lot in schools. It's a lot for us. It's a gamble. And I don't think we should gamble with people's hard-earned money, the very people we say we want to help. We shouldn't be doing that. And again, we need control. And however we get that, my colleagues are all smarter than I am, so they'll probably come up with something. But this, the way it sits now, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, really? Really? They're going to take $200 off the rent. That is a lot of money. It's a lot of money for people who are working, and these aren't working poor they're talking about, but, and I get it. It is a nice apartment complex, and I liked what Councilwoman Panduro had to say about that. She lived there. She knows it's nice. It is. I remember when it was built. But I would think, Mr. Tim said that, he's willing to do this, but he's going to vote yes. But, when do we put the safeguard in, before or after we vote? That's my question to my colleagues. I mean, we just get up and walk away after we've been warned. I think it's disrespectful to our staff. And that's all. I appreciate everything you say. I agree with you guys all on that. We need, all across the board kind of housing. Housing is not going to get us out of the homeless crisis. That's going to be mental health and drug addiction services, just so you know. But the bottom line is that I understand where you're coming from. Everybody's coming with a good heart. I guess I just have to be the dark one on this, because of the risk. Thank you.
Thank you. No other comments? Entertain a motion then.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to make the motion to approve, but also include in this last screen, under the favorable terms of negotiations for the city, so you can go back. Will this come back before us again for the final contract?
So,
because if we approve it, what I don't want Gray, whatever it was, to say, no, you approved it, we don't really want to talk.
So that question in terms of timing, that's one I would defer to Opportunity and CSCDA on, because I know there's an option that they have in terms of the property. What we would do, and I would somewhat propose, is you could approve it and give us direction, and we'll go with these deals and get the best deal we can in terms of that, and you could give us that direction, and that's something that we will implement, and then it would not come back to you. That would help them with the timing issue, but the timing question is really them. The next council meeting would be September 7th.
So, council, in other words, this would not come back to you. There's a timing issue as we understand it with the developer. That's part of the concern that we have here, is that it doesn't give us a lot of time to do this, but that's the council's decision if you want to go that direction. There's no guarantee that they would agree to any of this and unless it's something that you say, we want this to come back.
Okay.
This is something, go ahead.
Your court, ma'am.
Okay, so just for a bit of context, this is a market rate real estate transaction that we're in contract with the seller on right now. So we do have to abide by the terms of our contract in order to close. But I can respond to some of these items. So on number one, we'd actually proposed some language that we've inserted in other regulatory agreements under this program, and we proposed it to Mr. Gasaway. He has the language, and it would allow us to provide monitoring reports to the city on an annual basis.
Okay.
So that would address number one. And then on number two, we had proposed, as Mr. Gasaway mentioned, $31,500 per unit. So those would be the 2 points there. I'm not sure there's much to do on number three. I would look for some direction on that. And then I'd also just like to point out that on number four, the property value, it is supported by an appraisal. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to submit it to the city, but it will be published as part of the bond.
Is supported by an appraisal?
It is supported
You
by
guys
an
have the appraisal?
Yeah. We have one for our confidentiality with the seller. We can't publish it until we go to our bond offering.
Did it come in at value?
It does, yes.
Willing buyer, willing seller. Got it. Okay, how about number five?
And number five, the developer return is really consistent with other projects. Maybe you should address that one.
On the developer return, that is what we've done 11 of these projects now throughout the state.
11?
11, yes.
Okay.
And so the return is based upon what these can underwrite to. So if you can't really go above them because then the bonds don't price out there correctly.
Right.
And so this is commensurate with every other transaction that we've done out there. So it's not above, it's not below, and we keep it even. So there is no differentiation whether you're in San Diego or Fairfield or wherever it may be.
I get it. Okay. I'm comfortable with my motion.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask David a question? You had mentioned that takes care of number one, what you were talking about, some language. David, what they proposed, does that give the city oversight of the project, including ensuring affordability of maintenance?
It gives us a report from them, which we would be requesting in effect, and as we reviewed the project under number two anyways, with that oversight. What that does not give us is that does not make us a party to that regulatory agreement. So it provides us additional information, which, as Mr. Hamill pointed out, then as a member of the JPA, we could then go to the JPA and request some changes be made. But there would be it doesn't give us any legal position, which is really what we were identifying there with number one, which is something that we did have some back and forth in terms of the conversation leading up to today.
I wanted to make sure that was clarified there. Again, we want to make sure that you've got our information there.
An informed decision, and you can go back to the JPA and you can put pressure on the JPA, so it's standard politics. Again, I would just reiterate is, when's the time to do something? And it is, I wouldn't say it's a leap of faith, it's business, and how successful you are and the bonding agency is going forward depends on how Fairfield and the other cities are treated, and if not now, when. So my motion stands. Thank you, sir.
And the second is by the Vice Mayor. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bertani. Councilmember Moy.
No, for the reasons that I stated.
Councilmember Panduro.
Yes.
Councilmember Tim.
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro.
Yes.
And Mayor Price.
Yes, motion carries 5-1. And there is no other business before this body. We are adjourned until our next meeting on September 7th. Thank you very much for being here and participating. Good night.